terrified young baddie was running as fast as she could through the rain while an unknown man secretly chased after her. In her desperate attempt to escape, she suddenly slipped and fell to the ground, leaving her shoes covered in mud. Before she could recover, the man caught hold of her and forcefully took her away with him. Meanwhile, Tak Jakiel was already running late for an important matter and looked increasingly anxious as he hurried toward his destination. Elsewhere, Young-soo was sitting inside a club, looking extremely frustrated. He complained that whenever he said anything or refused to do something, his father always shut him down over every single issue. He declared that once he became the company's president, he would make his father pay for everything he had put him through. Sitting beside him, Pilwon-hyung tried to calm him down, explaining that the chairman had probably ordered such strict discipline because it was all part of preparing him to become the company's successor. He advised Jung-soo to endure it a little longer since it was simply part of the process. Jung-soo, however, responded that the amount of stress he was under would probably kill him before he even inherited the company. As he looked around, he realized that Jakiel was nowhere to be seen and began drinking even more while waiting for him. A short while later, Jakiel finally entered the club. The moment Jung-soo saw him, he immediately started shouting at him, complaining that he was always late and must have completely lost his mind. Jakiel quietly took a seat beside him and apologized for arriving late. Looking at Jung-soo's condition, he asked whether he had been drinking heavily, adding that he could easily tell by the number of insults Jung-soo was throwing at him. Jung-soo remarked that Jakiel only felt comfortable talking back because he was slightly older than him. In response, Jakiel calmly explained that it was nothing worth getting upset over. He added that people often said all kinds of things after getting drunk and told Jung-soo that he could curse at him as much as he wanted if doing so helped him relieve some of his stress. Jung-soo told him to stop talking and immediately asked whether he had brought the item he had been instructed to collect. Jakiel then took out an envelope and handed it over, confirming that he had completed the task. The moment Young-soo saw the envelope, his mood brightened considerably. He praised Jakiel for doing such an excellent job and remarked that he deserved a proper reward. Saying that using cash had become quite inconvenient these days, he nevertheless pulled out a large amount of money and handed it over to Jakiel as payment. At the same table, a club hostess named Cherry was sitting beside Jung-soo. He looked at her and casually asked whether she wanted some money as well. Cherry politely replied that she would certainly appreciate receiving a tip if he was willing to give her one. Hearing that, Jung-soo remarked that if that was the case, then he should definitely reward her too. However, he attached a condition, saying that for every piece of clothing she removed, he would give her 5 bundles of cash. His proposal left Cherry completely stunned. Another hostess who was nearby spoke up, saying that she could do it instead. She explained that it was Cherry's first time being asked to do something like that, and that Cherry clearly looked uncomfortable with the situation. As the other hostess was about to remove her clothes, Jung-soo suddenly turned his anger toward Cherry instead. He shouted at her, questioning why she was even working in a place like that if she was so inexperienced and clueless. Cherry nervously explained that she was only working there because she needed to pay off her student loan. After hearing that, Jung-soo remarked that she was only there because of debt. He then unexpectedly ordered her to hit a back session with him. Cherry was completely taken aback by the strange demand, but Jung-soo forcibly made her go through the PT lessons against her will. The other hostess watched the entire situation helplessly because she wanted to protect Cherry. However, when she tried to intervene, Young-soo slapped her so hard that she fell onto the floor. He then began physically assaulting her until Pilwon stepped in and stopped him. Pilwon warned him that if the chairman ever found out about the incident, he would end up in serious trouble. Soon afterward, the club manager entered the private room after hearing about the disturbance and asked what had happened. Pilwon immediately stepped outside with the manager and assured him that everything would be taken care of. He told the manager that he would cover all of the injured woman's medical expenses and instructed him to make sure she received proper treatment right away. The manager acknowledged his instructions and agreed to handle the matter. Meanwhile, inside the private room, Jakiel quietly lit Jung-soo's cigarette and advised him not to dwell on what had just happened. He remarked that Young-soo was already carrying enough stress because of the intense training and pressure surrounding his succession as the company's future president. Young-soo agreed, admitting that all of his behavior stemmed from the overwhelming stress he had been enduring. Young-soo instructed Jakiel to gather a lineup of men who all had intimidating appearances and sharp, killer looks. He emphasized that everything should be done with class, but at the same time they should go all out because he wanted the gathering to be extravagant and unforgettable. He remarked that everyone should enjoy themselves and make it a night worthy of remembering. After listening to him, Jakiel asked whether he was talking about arranging a private party. He then asked him to specify exactly when he wanted the event to take place and where he wanted everything to be organized so that he could begin making the necessary arrangements. Young-soo replied that the party had to be held at his private villa. He further instructed that it should remain completely secret and exclusive, allowing only a carefully selected group of people to attend, so that no unnecessary attention would be drawn to the event. Meanwhile, on a bridge elsewhere in the city, a young man named Gong Chiseong stood alone while staring silently at the screen of his phone. His face reflected nothing but disappointment as he became absorbed in his own thoughts. He reflected on how everything had once again ended in failure despite all of his efforts. He thought about how the company where he had been employed had gone bankrupt, leaving him unemployed overnight. To make matters even worse, he had also become a victim of a rental scam, which had placed an even greater financial burden on him. He could not understand why life continued to treat him so unfairly. He wondered how it was possible that, despite obtaining numerous professional certifications and constantly working to improve himself, he still could not find a stable job. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. He even remembered that a company he had genuinely wanted to join had recently rejected his application, making him feel even more hopeless. While he remained completely occupied with those depressing thoughts, an exceptionally beautiful young woman happened to walk past him. Even in the middle of all his worries, his attention instinctively shifted toward her. He could not help amusing himself by thinking that despite everything going wrong in his life, his eyes were still faithfully following their natural instincts, and he jokingly considered that ability to be almost legendary. Just as he was about to continue thinking to himself, his phone suddenly slipped from his hand and began falling toward the river below. Without thinking, he instinctively leaned over the bridge railing in an attempt to catch it before it disappeared into the water. However, the young woman happened to glance back at that exact moment. Seeing him leaning dangerously over the edge, she completely misunderstood the situation and became convinced that he was about to jump into the river. Alarmed by what she believed she had witnessed, she immediately rushed toward him, grabbed him tightly, and pulled him back from the railing. Before he could even react, she had already burst into tears. Chiseong was completely bewildered because he had absolutely no idea what had just happened. While crying uncontrollably, the young woman asked whether he had completely lost his mind. She emotionally told him that nothing was worth throwing his life away for, and insisted that there was absolutely nothing waiting for him in death. Chiseong immediately tried to explain that she had misunderstood the situation, but before he could properly finish his sentence, she continued speaking through her tears. She insisted that none of life's problems would ever disappear simply because someone chose to die, and she begged him not to make such a terrible decision. Unable to understand why she was reacting so emotionally, Chiseong gently interrupted her and explained that there had been a misunderstanding from the very beginning. He clarified that he had not been trying to jump into the river at all, and that he had merely leaned over the railing because his phone had slipped from his hand, and he had been trying to catch it before it fell into the water. After hearing his explanation, the young woman immediately realized that she had misunderstood everything. Feeling embarrassed, she sincerely apologized and admitted that she had honestly believed he was trying to end his life by jumping into the river. Chiseong smiled awkwardly and reassured her that everything was fine. The young woman accepted his response, nodded politely, and quietly stated that she should be on her way. After saying that, she turned around and walked away, leaving Chiseong standing alone on the bridge once again. As he watched her disappear into the distance, Chiseong could not help thinking that he had wanted to invite her for a cup of tea or perhaps a drink. However, reality quickly struck him once again as he remembered that he could not even afford to pay his credit card bill for the current month. Even so, he found the entire encounter strangely unbelievable. He thought that despite all the bad luck he had been experiencing lately, such a beautiful woman had actually cried because she thought he was in danger. Smiling bitterly to himself, he concluded that perhaps the day had not been entirely unlucky after all. At that very moment, his phone suddenly rang. Looking at the caller ID, he realized that it was Jicheol calling him. He immediately answered the call, and Jicheol asked how he had been doing after such a long time. Chiseong honestly admitted that life had not been treating him very well. He explained that he was barely managing to find any work, and that securing even temporary jobs had become extremely difficult. Curious about the unexpected call, he then asked Jicheol why he had suddenly contacted him after so many years without any communication. Jicheol got straight to the point and asked whether Chiseong would be interested in taking on a part-time job. Hearing that, Chiseong immediately declined the offer, explaining that he needed to focus on preparing for several certification examinations and did not think he would have enough time to take on additional work. However, Jicheol confidently responded that he was certain Chiseong would change his mind once he heard the details of the offer. He explained that this was not an ordinary part-time job and assured him that the payment was exceptionally high. He emphasized that it was an opportunity far beyond the level of a normal temporary position. Finally, he revealed that the job would pay 10 million won for only 2 days of work, making it an offer that was almost impossible for someone in Chiseong's financial situation to ignore. Unable to believe what he had just heard, he immediately asked Jicheol what kind of job could possibly pay such an enormous sum. Without giving it another thought, he declared that he would definitely accept the offer. The following day, Chiseong went to meet Jicheol to learn more about the job. As they sat together, Ji-kyul took out his phone and showed him his YouTube channel. Chi-seong looked at the screen with surprise, before asking whether the channel actually belonged to him. He was even more shocked when he noticed that the channel had already surpassed 1 million subscribers. Looking at Ji-kyul with admiration, he remarked that reaching such a milestone was an incredible achievement. Ji-kyul smiled modestly and explained that it had only been about a year since he had started the channel, and that it was only now beginning to gain significant popularity. As Chi-seong continued browsing through the videos, he noticed that there was also a beautiful female content creator who regularly appeared on the channel. He quietly admired her appearance before shifting his attention back to the job offer. Somewhat cautiously, he asked Ji-kyul whether the work involved anything particularly difficult or physically demanding. Ji-kyul casually shook his head and assured him that there was nothing complicated about it. He explained that Chi-seong's responsibilities would mostly involve cleaning, carrying things around, and handling small tasks whenever they were needed. He reminded Chi-seong that ever since middle school he had worked countless different part-time jobs and had gained experience doing almost every kind of labor imaginable. According to Ji-kyul, there was practically nothing that Chi-seong could not handle. Chi-seong acknowledged that statement and admitted that he had indeed worked in restaurants, performed manual labor, and taken on many other physically demanding jobs over the years. However, he still found the payment difficult to understand. He commented that paying someone such a massive amount of money for ordinary chores simply did not make any sense. Hearing his doubts, Ji-kyul honestly explained the real reason behind the unusually high payment. He told Chi-seong that, to be truthful, most of the money was not for the work itself, but for maintaining absolute secrecy. He explained that everyone working there had to promise that they would never reveal anything they saw or heard inside the villa to anyone outside. He quickly clarified that there was nothing illegal about the job. Ji-kyul then revealed that the man who would be paying them was Gu Jung-soo, the elite heir to the powerful Gu group. The moment Chi-seong heard that name, he froze in surprise. Memories immediately rushed back to him as he recalled that not long ago he had failed to secure a position at one of the Gu Group's affiliated companies. Ji-kyul continued explaining the situation by saying that Jung-soo had been under tremendous stress because of the pressure surrounding his role as the future successor of the Gu Group. In order to escape that pressure for a while, he had decided to invite a few close friends to his private villa and simply enjoy a lavish party. However, because members of elite families were extremely careful about maintaining their public image, Jung-soo was especially concerned about any negative rumors leaking to the outside world. For that reason, everyone present at the villa was required to keep everything completely confidential. Ji-kyul added that their only responsibility was to help out while the guests enjoyed themselves and had as much wild fun as they wanted throughout the party. Curious about their connection, Chi-seong asked Ji-kyul how he had managed to become acquainted with someone as influential as Gu Jung-soo. Ji-kyul explained that they had first met at a club and had gotten along surprisingly well from the very beginning. Their friendship had gradually grown stronger over time, and Jung-soo had even started sponsoring some of Ji-kyul's work. To further demonstrate how generous Jung-soo could be, Ji-kyul proudly mentioned that the luxury car they were currently traveling in had also been gifted to him by Jung-soo. Ji-kyul then encouraged Chi-seong to do his best during the job. He explained that whenever Jung-soo happened to be in a good mood, he became incredibly generous and did not hesitate to reward the people around him. Hearing that filled Chi-seong with excitement. Deep inside, he began imagining that this temporary job might become an opportunity to build a friendship with someone from the elite class. He believed that if he managed to leave a good impression, it could eventually help him establish valuable connections that might completely change the direction of his life. After driving for some time, the two of them finally arrived outside Jung-soo's luxurious villa. The moment Chi-seong stepped out of the car, he was left completely amazed by the enormous mansion standing before him. He quietly admired the breathtaking size of the estate, realizing that it was far grander than anything he had ever seen in person. Without wasting any time, both of them began unloading the luggage they had brought with them and carried everything toward the entrance. As soon as they stepped inside, Ji-kyul looked around and casually remarked that it seemed everyone had already arrived because there was so much noise echoing throughout the villa. Chi-seong silently observed his surroundings and could not stop comparing them with his own life. He thought to himself that life was incredibly difficult for ordinary people like him, while the wealthy elite spent their days enjoying unimaginable luxury and entertainment. The unfair contrast made him feel genuinely jealous. A few moments later, they walked farther into the villa, where loud music was blasting throughout the property. Looking toward the outdoor area, Chi-seong saw several beautiful women enjoying an extravagant pool party, while laughter and excitement filled the atmosphere. Watching the luxurious scene unfold before his eyes, he could hardly believe that these were people living in the very same world as him, yet their lives seemed completely different from everything he had ever experienced. As Chi-seong looked around the luxurious villa, His eyes wandered toward the women gathered around the pool and throughout the party. He could not help thinking that every single one of them looked like a professional model. In his mind, they resembled the glamorous women who appeared on the covers of fashion magazines, and he found it difficult to believe that so many exceptionally attractive people were gathered in one place. Meanwhile, Jishyol instructed him to put the luggage down over there, before telling him that he would introduce him to a few important people. Chisong immediately followed his instructions, and after setting the bags aside, the two of them walked further into the villa toward Jungsu. Upon reaching him, Chisong politely introduced himself with respect. However, Jungsu barely reacted and greeted him with an indifferent and rather cold response, making it obvious that he was not particularly interested in the introduction. Chisong felt slightly awkward but chose not to take it personally. Sitting beside Jungsu was a beautiful young woman named Sun Nana. The moment she noticed Chisong, she openly admired his appearance and remarked that he was an incredibly handsome man. Hearing those unexpected words left Chisong slightly embarrassed. As he looked at her more carefully, he suddenly realized that she was the same woman he had seen earlier on Jichyol's YouTube channel. Quietly observing her, he thought that she was even more beautiful in person than she had appeared on the screen. Because of how naturally she was sitting beside Jungsu, Chisong assumed that she might be Jungsu's girlfriend or partner. As he continued looking around, he noticed that there were numerous guests scattered throughout the villa. Many of them appeared extremely comfortable with one another, casually touching and interacting without any hesitation. A short while later, another young woman with silver hair approached Sun Nana. She warned Nana not to get too close to Jungsu, and before long, the two women began arguing with each other. Their disagreement quickly drew attention, but neither of them seemed willing to back down. Ignoring the argument beside him, Jungsu turned his attention toward Chisong and casually asked whether everything regarding his work had been taken care of. Chisong respectfully replied that everything was fine and that he understood what he needed to do. However, as he looked around at all the beautiful women surrounding Jungsu, he quietly assumed that every one of them had come there solely because of him. Elsewhere, Jichyol noticed another young woman named Marie holding a cigarette. He immediately asked her not to smoke there, reminding her that it was not an appropriate place for it. Marie, however, showed no interest in listening to him. She coldly told him to mind his own business before turning her attention elsewhere. Watching the exchange from a distance, Chisong quietly observed Marie. Looking at her appearance and attitude, he guessed that she might be a foreigner. He also found her personality rather arrogant, making her seem very different from everyone else present at the villa. As his eyes continued wandering through the crowd, he suddenly noticed another young woman with long black hair. The moment he saw her, he found himself staring for a brief moment. He silently admitted that she was exactly his type. At the same time, he could not shake the strange feeling that her face looked incredibly familiar, although he could not remember where he might have seen her before. A little later, Jikyo led Chisong toward the kitchen area to begin preparing for the evening. As they entered, they happened to meet Pilwan, who was already there supervising the staff. Pilwan looked toward Chisong before asking Jikyo whether he was the new helper they had hired for the party. Jikyo confirmed that he was, and then introduced Pilwan as Jungsu's older cousin. After the introduction, Pilwan turned his attention toward Chisong and instructed him to follow him. Maintaining a calm and composed manner, Pilwan began explaining Chisong's responsibilities in detail. He instructed Chisong to prepare the barbecue for dinner and emphasized that whenever he gave him any instructions, they needed to be carried out as quickly as possible. He further explained that Chisong had to ensure that the assigned work area remained perfectly clean at all times, and that he would only be relieved of his duties after everything had been cleaned by the following morning. Pilwan then gave him one final and extremely important instruction. He firmly reminded Chisong that under no circumstances was he allowed to reveal anything he saw or heard inside the villa to anyone outside the property. Chisong immediately nodded respectfully and replied that he already understood the situation because Jishyol had explained everything to him earlier while they were traveling. Although he answered politely, he quietly reflected that Pilwan's tone sounded perfectly calm, refined, and respectful. However, despite those polite words, there was something about the way Pilwan looked at him that felt unusually patronizing, making Chisong feel slightly uncomfortable. As he glanced around the villa once more, he found himself thinking that every single person there behaved differently from ordinary people. Their conversations, attitudes, and constant emphasis on secrecy made it seem as though everyone was involved in some mysterious business that outsiders were never meant to know about. Just before leaving, Pilwan handed Chisong 500,000 won in advance. Chisong accepted the money with both hands and sincerely promised that he would do his very best. As he looked at the cash in his hands, he quietly thought to himself that he was genuinely grateful for being given such an opportunity, hoping that this job might finally become the turning point his difficult life had been waiting for. By evening, Chisong had almost finished preparing dinner for everyone at the villa. Standing in the kitchen, he looked over everything one last time to make sure it had been properly arranged. After checking the food, he thought to himself that most of the preparation was already complete. Since the meat had been placed in the marinade and would need some time before it was ready to be cooked, he decided that he had a short opportunity to rest before setting everything up for dinner. As he stood there for a moment, he quietly reflected on how strange everything still felt to him. He found it difficult to believe that he had somehow ended up working a part-time job at such an extravagant place. The luxurious villa, the wealthy guests, and the lavish lifestyle surrounding him all felt completely different from the world he was accustomed to living in. While lost in his thoughts, Chi-seong happened to glance outside through the large glass window of the kitchen. From there, he could clearly see everyone gathered around the swimming pool. They were laughing, chatting, and enjoying themselves without a single worry. Watching them, he could not help thinking that they all possessed an incredible amount of energy, as though they had nothing in life to concern themselves with except having fun. Among the guests, Ji-kyeol stepped forward while holding a luxurious Chanel necklace in his hand. Raising it for everyone to see, he announced that he had prepared a special gift for the people attending the party. However, he explained that only one person would be able to win it. He then revealed the rules of the game, saying that whoever managed to stand on the floating tube first would become the winner and receive the necklace as the prize. The moment the women heard that the reward was a limited edition Chanel necklace, they became extremely excited. Everyone immediately recognized how valuable and exclusive it was, making them even more determined to win the competition. As soon as the game began, all of the women rushed toward the pool and started competing fiercely to climb onto the floating tube before anyone else. They struggled to keep their balance while trying to push past one another, each of them doing everything they could to claim the prize. After an intense competition, Soyura ultimately managed to reach the floating tube first and successfully secured her position, making her the winner of the game. Ji-kyeol acknowledged her victory and presented the limited edition Chanel necklace to her as promised. Watching everything unfold from inside the kitchen, Chi-seong's attention remained fixed on the winner. The moment he got a clear look at Soyura's face, he froze in surprise. He immediately recognized her as the very same young woman he had encountered on the bridge earlier that day. The woman who had mistakenly believed he was trying to jump into the river and had broken down in tears while trying to save him. The unexpected reunion left Chi-seong completely astonished, as he had never imagined that he would run into her again at a place like Jungsu's villa. As Chi-seong continued watching the celebration from the kitchen, his eyes remained fixed on Soyura. Now that she had let her hair down, he became completely certain that she was the same young woman he had met earlier on the bridge. There was no longer any doubt in his mind. He quietly thought to himself that she was indeed the woman who had mistaken him for someone attempting to jump into the river and had desperately tried to save him. While he was still lost in those thoughts, Pilhwan entered the kitchen and immediately began giving instructions. He told Chi-seong to stop grilling the meat for the time being, and instead, clear away all of the empty plates that had begun piling up. Without wasting any time, Chi-seong politely acknowledged the order and immediately started collecting the used dishes before washing them one by one. As he remained busy with the cleaning, Ji-kyeol walked into the kitchen and approached him. Looking at him with a smile, he asked whether everything was going well and whether he was managing his work properly. He then jokingly asked if the job seemed worth all the effort. Chi-seong nodded and replied that everything was fine. He explained that no matter how tiring the work became, it was still nothing more than ordinary chores, so he had no reason to complain. After a brief pause, his curiosity got the better of him, and he asked Ji-kyeol about the women attending the party. He remarked that every one of them looked like a celebrity, and he wondered where Ji-kyeol had managed to meet such beautiful and well-known women. Ji-kyeol smiled before explaining that he had met all of them through his broadcasting channel. He then began introducing each of them one by one. Pointing toward the young woman with short hair, he explained that her name was Sun Nana, and that she was considered the ace of a room salon because of her popularity and reputation. He then pointed toward the tanned woman and explained that her name was Bronze. According to Ji-kyeol, she regularly worked as a live streamer and also modeled for various professional photo shoots. After that, he pointed toward the blonde woman and introduced her as Marie. He explained that she was a fairly well-known social media influencer with a considerable following. He casually remarked that although Marie had absolutely no manners, she possessed exceptional looks, which was why people often overlooked her unpleasant personality. Ji-kyeol then pointed toward the youngest-looking girl among them. He explained that she was only 20 years old and had recently entered the industry. She mainly worked in cosplay and was still a Yina. Ji-kyeol added that he had invited her because he wanted to help increase her popularity and earnings by featuring her on his live stream. After listening to all the introductions, Chi-seong looked at Ji-kyeol with admiration. He commented that Ji-kyeol himself was quite an impressive person. He admitted that he could not understand how Ji-kyeol had managed to become acquainted with so many attractive and influential women. Still curious, He asked him about the last woman, the one he had recognized from the bridge. Jikyo followed his gaze before replying that her name was So Yura. He acknowledged that she was indeed very beautiful. He further explained that it had actually been son Nana who had brought Yura to the party, so it was Jishiel's first time meeting her as well. Since he did not know much about her, he assumed that she probably worked in the same industry as the rest of the women attending the gathering. After finishing the introductions, Jikyo lowered his voice and explained the overall situation more honestly. He told Chiseong that Jungsu was the kind of person who invited women like them purely for his own entertainment. As long as he had enough money, he could surround himself with as many beautiful women as he pleased. Jishio also explained that, from the women's perspective, attending these gatherings was not necessarily a bad arrangement. They were able to enjoy luxurious parties, receive expensive gifts, and have a good time while socializing with wealthy people. Because of those benefits, many of them willingly accepted such invitations. He added that if any of them managed to keep Jungsu happy and entertained throughout the evening, they would often leave with an exceptionally generous allowance, in addition to the expensive gifts they had already received. According to him, it was an arrangement from which both sides benefited. After hearing the explanation, Chiseong nodded in understanding. He commented that Youngsu had already offered him an enormous amount of money simply for doing ordinary work around the villa, so he could understand why the women also found the arrangement attractive. However, Jishiel's expression suddenly became serious. He warned Chiseong to listen carefully to what he was about to say. He firmly instructed him not to develop any interest in any of the women attending the party and not to approach or even try to start a conversation with them. Jikyo explained that Jungsu was an extremely possessive person when it came to anything or anyone he considered his own. Even the smallest misunderstanding involving one of those women could easily provoke his anger. He warned Chiseong that if such a situation ever occurred, not only would their entire job be ruined, but Chiseong himself could be thrown out of the villa immediately without receiving a single one of the payment he had been promised. After giving his warning, Chiseong assured Jikyo that he had nothing to worry about. He jokingly remarked that Jungsu was practically the king of that place, and there was no chance that any of those women would ever pay attention to someone like him. Telling Jikyo to go ahead without worrying about him, Chiseong added that he still had plenty of work left to finish before the night was over. With that, Chiseong turned around and was about to leave the kitchen when he unexpectedly came across Yena. Slightly surprised to see her there, he casually asked why she had come into that area of the villa. Yena simply replied that she was on her way to the restroom. After hearing her answer, Chiseong did not think much of it and returned to his work. As he continued carrying out his duties in the kitchen, he occasionally glanced outside through the large glass windows. At one point, he noticed So Yura standing near the swimming pool with another young woman. Watching her from a distance, he quietly thought that she looked incredibly innocent compared to everyone else at the party. He could not help admiring her beauty and wondered why someone who appeared so pure was attending a gathering held purely for the entertainment of wealthy people. Even so, he quickly reminded himself that someone like her would never pay attention to an ordinary man like him, making it pointless for him to think any further about it. While he remained busy cleaning and organizing the kitchen, another worker suddenly entered the room. The man casually asked Chiseong whether he had taken a liking to any of the women attending the party. Before Chiseong could properly respond, the man introduced himself as the caretaker of the villa. Surprised, Chiseong replied that nobody had mentioned anything about a caretaker being there. The caretaker then explained the situation with a helpless smile. He said that the young master had ordered him not to leave his quarters for 2 days because he wanted to spend time only with young people during the party. As a result, he had secretly come to the villa only to pick up a few personal belongings before quietly leaving again. The caretaker then lowered his voice and asked Chiseong not to mention to the young master that he had seen him. Looking toward the party outside, he commented that all of the young women attending were remarkably beautiful. After gathering the things he needed, he informed Chiseong that he would return the following day. Before leaving, he reminded him to make sure that every part of the villa remained perfectly clean. Just as he was about to walk away, the caretaker's expression became serious. He repeated the same warning that everyone else had been giving throughout the day. He firmly told Chiseong that whatever he saw or heard that night was none of his business, and that he should never discuss any of it outside the villa unless he wanted to create serious problems for himself. After giving that final warning, the caretaker quietly left. Left standing alone once again, Chiseong found himself becoming increasingly confused. As he walked toward the restroom, he silently wondered why every single person in the villa kept emphasizing secrecy. He could not understand why everyone seemed so desperate to ensure that nothing happening inside the property ever reached the outside world. When he finally arrived outside the restroom, he reached for the door, believing that it was empty. However, just before opening it, he suddenly heard voices coming from inside. Realizing that someone was already there, he stopped himself and listened more carefully without intending to. To his surprise, he recognized one of the voices as Jikyo's, The other voice belonged to Yena. From inside the restroom, Chicheol was asking Yena to hit back together with him. Yena repeatedly refused, explaining that she could not do something like that. However, Jikil reminded her that he was the one who had brought her to the villa in the first place, implying that she should cooperate with his request. Standing silently outside the door, Chiseong became visibly surprised by what he was hearing. He could not help recalling how Jikil had only moments earlier warned him never to become interested in any of the women at the party, or even speak to them. Yet now, Jikil himself was alone with one of those women, and making such a request. The contradiction left Chiseong feeling confused, and he quietly questioned Jikil's sincerity. After continuing their conversation for a while, Yena eventually gave in. Although she had initially refused several times, she ultimately agreed to hit back with Jikil. He realized that the last time he had performed a stretching session with his girlfriend had been 3 years earlier. Ever since they had broken up, he had never experienced anything like that again. Thinking about the past only made him feel more awkward after accidentally overhearing the conversation between Jikil and Yena. Just as he was about to leave the hallway, Pilwan suddenly approached him and asked why he was standing outside the restroom. Before Pilwan could become suspicious, Chiseong quickly came up with an excuse. However, Pilwan simply informed him that everyone had gathered in the living room for drinks and instructed him to prepare a simple platter of fruit, along with several bottles of wine. After giving those instructions, Pilwan started walking toward the restroom where Jikil and Yena were still inside. Realizing what was about to happen, Chiseong immediately stepped in front of him to stop him. Trying to remain as calm as possible, he apologized and explained that it would be better not to use that restroom at the moment because he had just been inside due to a stomachache. He awkwardly added that the restroom was probably not in the best condition and politely suggested that Pilwan use the restroom on the second floor instead. Pilwan looked at him for a brief moment before simply replying that it was fine. Inside the restroom, Yena became extremely nervous after realizing that Pilhuan had almost entered. However, Jishiol reassured her not to worry. He confidently explained that Chiseong was a trusted friend and that he would never betray them. According to Jichiol, Chiseong would protect them and make sure that nothing happened. Meanwhile, Chiseong returned to the kitchen and began preparing the fruit platters along with the wine for the guests in the living room. While arranging everything on the trays, he occasionally looked toward the gathering through the open entrance. Watching everyone from inside the house, he quietly thought that the guests somehow looked even more glamorous and attractive than they had earlier by the swimming pool. As he carried the prepared fruit toward the living room, one of the forks accidentally slipped from his hand and fell onto the floor. Before he could bend down to pick it up, Soyura walked over and gently picked it up for him instead. Handing him the fork, she smiled politely and admitted that she felt a little guilty enjoying herself while he was working so hard, alone in the kitchen. Chiseong smiled awkwardly and replied that it was perfectly fine because he had always been accustomed to doing all kinds of work. To him, handling chores like these was nothing unusual. As they spoke, Chiseong found himself looking at her more carefully. Seeing her from such a close distance, he once again thought about how beautiful and naturally pretty she was. There was a gentle innocence about her that made her stand out from everyone else attending the party. Curious about him, Soyura asked whether he really worked there. She casually mentioned that she had never attended a party like this before. Chisong replied that it was actually his first time experiencing such a gathering as well. After looking at him for another moment, Soyura hesitated before saying that she felt as though they had met somewhere before. Just as Chiseong was about to answer and tell her about the incident on the bridge, their conversation was suddenly interrupted. Jungsu walked over and casually wrapped his arms around both Soyura and Marie. Looking at Yura, he jokingly commented that she was much slimmer than Marie. Marie immediately replied that body proportions did not really matter. Despite the playful exchange, Jungsu laughed and remarked that he liked both of them anyway. A moment later, Marie suggested that they should all have some wine together. Chiseong quietly watched the interaction from the side and could not help thinking that Jungsu had suddenly acted that way simply because he had seen Soyura talking to him. Although Jungsu was wealthy and powerful, Chisong found his behavior rather strange and possessive. Unexpectedly, Jungsu turned toward Chisong and invited him to join everyone for a drink. Not wanting to refuse the host, Chisong politely accepted the invitation. Soon afterward, Chisong found himself sitting together with Youngsu and all of the women in the living room. Looking directly at him, Youngsu asked whether he was really a job seeker and remarked that he was currently unemployed. Chisong quietly admitted that he was indeed looking for work. Youngsu then instructed one of the women to pour Chiseong a drink, before casually mentioning that he himself had been under a great deal of stress recently. His attention then shifted toward Bronze. Looking at her, he mentioned that he had heard she had recently participated in a photo shoot and complimented her by saying that she had looked exceptionally beautiful in the photographs. Bronze smiled slightly, but admitted that despite the successful photo shoot, she had not earned very much money from it. Hearing that, Jung-soo casually remarked that there were countless other girls working in the industry these days, making competition much tougher than before. Seeing her reaction, Jung-soo teasingly remarked that he could also make her train back with him if he wanted. Before Bronze could respond, she suddenly looked toward Chi-seong and laughed, commenting that he already appeared nervous just from sitting there with everyone. Jung-soo found the situation amusing and suddenly assigned the two of them a challenge. He instructed Bronze to train back with Chi-seong. To make the challenge even more tempting, he promised Bronze that if she successfully completed it, he would personally pay the entire cost of her next photo shoot. He then turned toward Chi-seong and made him an offer as well. Jung-soo declared that if Chi-seong could endure the high-volume back exercises for just 5 minutes, he would personally arrange for him to be hired through the GU Group's next employee recruitment process. The enormous opportunity instantly caught Chi-seong's attention. Knowing how desperately he wanted a stable career and remembering how he had previously failed to enter one of the GU Group's affiliated companies, he immediately accepted Jung-soo's proposal, realizing that such a chance might never come again. Jae-kyul immediately encouraged Chi-seong to accept Jung-soo's challenge without hesitation. He reminded him that even graduates from the most prestigious universities struggled to secure a position at the GU Group. He explained that opportunities like this almost never came to ordinary people, and that all Chi-seong had to do was endure the strength conditioning for 5 minutes. If he could manage that, his entire life could change. Listening to those words, Chi-seong silently reflected that this was truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He knew that people spent years trying to enter a company like the GU Group without success. If he could earn that chance in just a few minutes, he had no intention of letting it slip away. After the upper-lower training came to an end, Jung-soo announced that Chi-seong had successfully completed the challenge. He acknowledged that Chi-seong had managed to endure the entire 5 minutes without giving up. Marie also agreed with Jung-soo's decision. She stated that Chi-seong had indeed completed the challenge fairly and had remained standing until the time was over. According to her, he had unquestionably earned the victory. After everything was over, Chi-seong quietly excused himself and walked into the restroom. Standing in front of the sink, he splashed cold water onto his face while looking at his reflection in the mirror. He felt deeply embarrassed as countless thoughts filled his mind. He wondered whether everyone at the party would laugh at him because of what had just happened. At the same time, he reminded himself that he had endured the humiliation for the sake of his future. He quietly convinced himself that from now on he might finally have the opportunity to become an employee of a major corporation like the GU Group. Since he would probably never see most of the people attending the party again, he decided that there was no point dwelling on the embarrassment any longer. Taking a deep breath, he tried to calm himself, and thought that the party would probably continue throughout the entire night anyway. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the villa, Sun Nana playfully teased Bronze about the challenge. Laughing, Nana remarked that if she had been in Bronze's position, she would have easily completed the bet without any hesitation. At that moment, Pilwan quietly approached Jung-soo and leaned close enough to whisper something into his ear. He politely advised Jung-soo that whatever he intended to do next should be done privately inside his own room. Jung-soo casually replied that he could do whatever he wanted inside his own house, and remarked that enjoying himself freely was the whole reason everyone had gathered there for the party in the first place. Pilhwan calmly responded that it would still be much safer if fewer people were watching. He reminded Jung-soo that he certainly did not want another situation to become messy like the previous incident. After hearing that, Jung-soo admitted that Pilwan was the only person who consistently looked out for him. A moment later, Jung-soo jokingly asked Pilwan whether he also wanted to do a back workout. While speaking, he pointed toward So-yura and remarked that the moment he had first seen her, he had immediately known that she perfectly matched Pilwan's type. Not long afterward, Jung-soo invited Bronze, Sun, Nana, and Marie to accompany him into another room for more drinks. As they prepared to leave, Jae-kyul approached Jung-soo, carrying a storage drive. Handing it over, he explained that it contained the latest version that Jung-soo had requested. After taking it, Jung-soo looked toward So-yura and Yena before giving Jae-kyul another instruction. Pointing toward the two women, he remarked that the prettier one was standing on the right. He instructed Jae-kyul to send her upstairs, adding that Jae-kyul could spend time with the other woman instead. Meanwhile, Pilhwan instructed Chi-seong to clean the entire villa after the guests had moved into different rooms. Looking around, Chi-seong quietly thought that the party was probably coming to an end because only a handful of people now remained downstairs. Soon afterward, Jae-kyul approached So-yura and politely informed her that she could use the large bedroom upstairs if she wanted to rest. Yura quietly agreed, but despite her calm response, she looked noticeably uncomfortable. She silently remembered that Pilwan had gone upstairs only a short while earlier, and the thought made her feel increasingly uneasy. Elsewhere inside the villa, Young-soo began spending time with Bronze, Sun, Nana, and Marie while continuing the evening's entertainment. At the same time, Chi-seong remained in the kitchen, continuing his cleaning duties. As he worked alone, he could not stop thinking about everything that had happened throughout the night. The strange atmosphere inside the villa, the constant emphasis on secrecy, and everyone's unusual behavior continued to trouble him, leaving him with an uneasy feeling that something was not quite right. Meanwhile, Pilwan had gone upstairs, where he was alone with So-yura. At the same time, Jaekil and Yena were sitting together in the television lounge, sharing an expensive bottle of alcohol while talking comfortably with one another. After some time, Yena walked over to Chi-seong and warmly suggested that he should stop working for a while and join them for a drink, inviting him to relax with the rest of them instead of spending the entire evening cleaning. Meanwhile, on the second floor, Pilwan was sitting together with So-yura. Noticing that she continued standing awkwardly, he calmly told her that there was no need to remain standing and invited her to take a seat. Observing her expression, he remarked that she did not seem accustomed to gatherings with an atmosphere like the one downstairs. Yura honestly admitted that it was her very first time attending a party like this. She explained that she had met Nana Ani through her work, and Nana had told her that she could earn a considerable amount of money simply by spending one evening socializing with wealthy men. Hearing her straightforward explanation, Pilhwan commented that she was surprisingly honest and direct about her situation. After a brief pause, Yura politely asked whether she could also have a drink. Pilwan simply agreed and allowed her to pour herself a glass. Meanwhile, downstairs, Yena, Jaekil, and Chi-seong were sitting together in the television lounge while sharing drinks. As time passed, both Chi-seong and Jaekil continued drinking, but Yena appeared unaffected by the alcohol and remained completely sober. Jaekil, however, seemed increasingly irritated by the fact that Chi-seong was sitting there drinking alongside them. Sensing his frustration, Yena playfully teased Jaekil by commenting that he was an incredibly slow drinker. Determined not to be outdone, Jaekil immediately began drinking even more. He continued consuming one glass after another until he eventually drank far too much and finally lost consciousness, passing out on the spot. Sometime later, after confirming that Jaekil had completely passed out, Chi-seong turned to Yena and told her that he would clean everything up himself. He suggested that she should go and get some rest instead of staying there any longer. However, Yena shook her head and replied that she wanted to take a walk outside to clear her head. She added that she did not want to go by herself, so she asked Chi-seong to accompany her. Since there was no reason to refuse, Chi-seong agreed, and the two of them quietly left the lounge together. As they walked around the grounds of the villa, Yena looked around with admiration. She commented on how incredibly luxurious the entire property was, and remarked that the people living in that world were unbelievably wealthy. Chi-seong listened to her before asking whether she was beginning to feel more sober after walking outside in the fresh air. Yena smiled and replied that he did not have to speak to her so formally. She pointed out that she was actually younger than him, so he could speak more casually if he wanted. She then took a deep breath and commented on how refreshing the night air felt. Hearing her speak so comfortably with him, Chi-seong quietly began wondering whether she might be showing a personal interest in him. At that moment, light rain suddenly began falling from the sky. Yena looked up at the rain and suggested that they simply stay where they were for a while and enjoy listening to the sound of it instead of rushing back inside. Her unusually relaxed behavior made Chi-seong feel somewhat uncertain, and he could not help wondering what she was really thinking. As they continued walking, they eventually passed by a window that overlooked Jung-soo's room. From outside, they noticed that Jung-soo was inside with one of the women he had invited to the party. After briefly looking through the window, Yena jokingly suggested to Chi-seong that perhaps the two of them should also spend some time together there. Chi-seong did not immediately object. At that moment, his thoughts briefly drifted towards So-yura. Believing that once the party ended, he would probably never meet her again, he quietly convinced himself that everything happening that night would simply become a memory once he left the villa. Nana quietly left the room because she wanted to get some fresh air after spending so much time inside. The atmosphere indoors had started to feel suffocating, and she thought a brief walk outside would help clear her mind. However, the moment she stepped outside, her attention was immediately drawn toward a man standing nearby. He was wearing a long, oversized coat, and his face was completely hidden beneath it, making it impossible to recognize him. His appearance looked unusual and suspicious, causing Nana to stop in her tracks. She could not understand why someone would be standing there while deliberately concealing his identity, and she found herself wondering what reason he could possibly have for being there. Meanwhile, Jaekil slowly woke up the next morning with a heavy head. As he opened his eyes, he immediately reflected on how much alcohol he had consumed the previous night. His body felt exhausted, and he silently regretted drinking so heavily. Looking toward the window, he noticed that it was still raining outside, with the sound of raindrops continuing to fall steadily. As he looked around the room, his gaze shifted toward the sofa, where Chiseong was still asleep. Seeing him resting comfortably made Jikyul think that Chiseong had managed to earn a considerable amount of money, and he believed that it was all thanks to his own efforts that Chiseong had been given the opportunity to stay in such a luxurious and valuable place. However, that thought was quickly followed by disappointment as he reflected on himself. He felt frustrated that, once again, he had failed to get the opportunity to have a gym sesh with Yena, something he had been hoping for all along. The following morning, Chiseong woke up early and headed straight into the kitchen. He immediately began preparing a large amount of food, carefully working on each ingredient while the others were still asleep. As he continued cooking, he thought about the previous night's weather. Since it had rained throughout the night, he assumed that the sky would most likely clear up later and that the day would become bright and sunny. While continuing to prepare the meal, his thoughts gradually wandered back to the previous evening, and he remembered a wholesome back workout with Yena. The memory naturally brought a smile to his face as he continued stirring the pot. A few moments later, Yura entered the kitchen because she had been searching for some drinking water. As soon as Chiseong noticed her, he instinctively assumed that she must have also spent the previous night training back with another man. From everything he had observed since arriving there, he believed that every person staying in that house was involved in the very same type of work, so it seemed completely natural for him to reach that conclusion. Not long afterward, Yena approached him from behind and curiously asked about the food he had been preparing since early in the morning. Chiseong casually replied that he was making soup for everyone. While answering her, he suddenly noticed Yura watching both of them from a short distance away. Her gaze immediately made him feel uneasy. He silently hoped that nothing would come from her observation because he did not want anyone to start becoming suspicious about his growing closeness with Yena. He was especially concerned that others might begin questioning the nature of their relationship if they continued acting comfortably around each other. Just then, Jikyul entered the kitchen. The moment he stepped inside, he became genuinely surprised to see Chiseong and Yena standing so close together. Their comfortable interaction immediately caught his attention, and he could not help but observe the atmosphere between them. Only a short while later, Youngsu also walked into the kitchen while holding his head in discomfort. He complained that his head was hurting terribly because of the excessive drinking from the previous night. Before long, the rich aroma of the freshly prepared soup reached him, instantly catching his attention. Drawn by the delicious smell filling the kitchen, he quickly served himself a bowl without wasting any time. After taking the very first spoonful, he commented that the soup tasted incredibly refreshing and that it was exactly what he needed to recover from his hangover. After making sure everyone had been served, Chiseong explained that he had already expected everyone to wake up suffering from hangovers after drinking so much alcohol the previous night. Because of that, he had decided to prepare a large pot of soup so that everyone could feel better after eating it. Hearing his explanation, Jungsu jokingly remarked that Chiseong should have chosen to become a housekeeper instead of applying for a position at a large company. He pointed out that Chiseong was exceptionally skilled at cooking and taking care of household responsibilities, suggesting that such work suited him perfectly. Chiseong simply smiled, modestly agreed with the joke, and thanked him for the compliment. At the same time, deep inside his mind, he found himself thinking about the promise Jungsu had made the previous day regarding a job opportunity. Chiseong carefully counted everyone who had gathered together and soon realized that one person was missing. Looking around once again to make sure he had not made a mistake, he concluded that Nana was nowhere to be seen. Before he could say anything else, Jakil also noticed her absence and pointed out that Nana was missing. He then turned toward Bronze and asked whether Nana had been with her the previous night. Bronze explained that Nana had already disappeared by the time she woke up that morning, so she had no idea where she had gone. Marie also spoke up and admitted that she had not seen Nana anywhere since waking up. Yena then mentioned that she had spent the night sleeping with Yura in the guest room on the second floor, but when she woke up, Nana had not been there either. Hearing that statement unexpectedly cleared up one of Chiseong's earlier assumptions, making him realize that Yura had not actually spent the previous night with Pilhwan as he had initially believed. Before anyone could continue discussing the matter, Youngsu interrupted everyone and asked them to stop talking while he was eating. He casually remarked that the villa was huge and suggested that Nana had probably wandered somewhere else within the property. Since it was breakfast time, he believed there was no reason for everyone to panic and insisted that they should simply continue eating their meal. Although the others tried to remain calm, Chi Seong could not ignore the growing feeling of concern. After leaving the dining area, he began searching every corner of the villa. He carefully checked each room, the hallways, and every possible place where Nana might have been. But despite his efforts, he failed to find any sign of her. As his concern continued to grow, he began thinking that perhaps she had gone outside on her own. Just then, Yura approached him after noticing that he was searching the house. She asked whether he was also looking for Nana. She explained that everyone else was already getting ready to leave for home, yet Nana was still nowhere to be found. She also mentioned that Nana was not answering her phone despite several attempts to contact her. Yura assumed that Nana might have simply gone out for a walk. Chiseong replied that he had been thinking the same thing and was just about to head outside to search for her. Without any hesitation, Yura suggested that they should search together, believing it would be easier to find Nana if they stayed together. Agreeing with her suggestion, the two of them left the villa and began looking around the surrounding area. As they walked along the road outside the villa, Yura looked around at the soaked surroundings and commented that it seemed to have rained extremely heavily throughout the previous night. While continuing to walk, she suddenly lost her footing on the wet ground and was about to slip. Before she could fall, Chiseong quickly reached out and grabbed her to keep her from losing her balance. Embarrassed by the unexpected physical contact, he immediately apologized, worried that he might have startled her. However, Yura calmly reassured him that everything was perfectly fine. She explained that he had only been trying to help her, so there was nothing for him to apologize for. As she looked at him more carefully, a sudden memory crossed her mind. She realized that they had met once before on the bridge. Smiling awkwardly, she mentioned that she had finally remembered where she had seen him before and commented that it had been such a strange coincidence. She then playfully remarked that he should say something as well, instead of remaining silent. Chiseong admitted that he had assumed she had completely forgotten about that encounter. Yura laughed softly and confessed that the incident had been so embarrassing that it had remained in her memory ever since. While listening to her, Chiseong found himself quietly observing her expressions. He could not help thinking that she looked incredibly cute whenever she smiled. The more he spent time with her, the harder it became for him to believe that someone like Yura actually worked at a bar. Feeling that the timing might never be better than this, he gathered the courage to ask her if she would like to have dinner with him sometime. However, before he could finish saying what was on his mind, Yura suddenly noticed something unusual ahead of them. Her attention immediately shifted toward the road in front of them. Both of them stopped walking as they realized that the entire road had been completely blocked. Chiseong quickly understood that the heavy rain during the previous night must have triggered a landslide, which had buried the road beneath mud and debris. The realization immediately made him think that everyone at the villa might now be trapped there until the road was cleared. As he continued looking around the landslide, something lying among the mud suddenly caught his attention. He noticed a single shoe partially buried beneath the debris. A feeling of uneasiness immediately settled over him, and he silently feared that someone might have been swept away when the landslide occurred during the night. Before he could react any further, Yura looked at the shoe more closely and suddenly cried out in shock. With a trembling voice, she recognized it immediately and shouted that the shoe belonged to Nana. Not long after Yura discovered Nana's shoe near the landslide, Marie, Bronze, and Yena also arrived at the same location after hearing the commotion. Soon afterward, Jungsu and Pilwan came over as well to find out what had happened. As everyone gathered around the area where the shoe had been found, the atmosphere became increasingly tense. Looking at the landslide that had completely buried part of the road, Jungsu questioned whether everyone was suggesting that Nana had been trapped beneath all the mud and debris after the landslide occurred during the previous night. Bronze immediately recalled the last time she had seen Nana. She explained that Nana had told her she was only going to get some water during the night before leaving, and after that she had never returned. Jishiol then remembered something that had seemed insignificant at the time. He admitted that, during the previous night, he had noticed what looked like a human shadow passing near the storage shed. Because of the heavy rain and poor visibility, he had convinced himself that he was simply imagining things. However, after hearing everyone else's observations, he started believing that what he had seen had actually been real. Thinking back carefully, he remembered seeing a yellow raincoat and confidently concluded that the person he had seen must have been Nana. Trying to find another explanation, Marie suggested that Nana might have simply gone outside for a cigarette during the night. Meanwhile, Jungsu appeared far more concerned about another issue. Looking toward the damaged road, he pointed out that there was no way for any of them to return home while the road remained completely blocked by the landslide. He instructed everyone that they should immediately contact the groundskeeper and inform him that the road had become impassable. As the others listened to him, they silently found his reaction surprisingly cold. Even though a person had gone missing, he seemed far more focused on the inconvenience caused by the blocked road than on Nana's safety. Hoping to find another clue, Chiseong asked whether there were any security cameras installed around the villa. He suggested that checking the surveillance footage might reveal whether it had really been Nana who left the house during the night and perhaps show which direction she had gone. Young-soo agreed that it was worth checking, and everyone headed toward the security room expecting to find some answers. However, once they reached the monitoring system, they were shocked to discover that there was no recorded footage available at all. The cameras had not captured anything. Seeing everyone's confusion, Pilwan reminded Jung-soo that he himself had ordered all of the cameras to be disabled because he had not wanted any evidence of the private party taking place at the villa. Young-soo admitted that Pil-won was right before immediately asking whether he had contacted the housekeeper. Pil-won replied that he had already made the call and had been informed that it would take some time before anyone could reach the villa. While thinking about the situation, Pil-won recalled the housekeeper, explaining that the heavy rain had caused serious water damage at the nearby construction site, forcing the construction company to deal with multiple problems before they could clear the road. The housekeeper had assured him that they would try to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. After ending the discussion, Pil-won quietly reminded Jung-soo of something far more important. He told him not to forget that the company president's birthday celebration was approaching, during which the matter of the company's ownership would also be discussed. He warned Jung-soo that if the president discovered he was stranded at a private villa with a group of women, it could seriously damage his chances of inheriting the company. Meanwhile, Chi-seong gathered the others together and shared his own observations. He pointed out that the cabinet near the entrance of the villa had been filled with identical yellow raincoats for the guests. Since Nana's shoe had been found outside, he believed she must have taken one of those yellow raincoats before leaving the villa during the night. Yina found the situation difficult to understand and questioned why Nana would have gone outside alone so late at night without telling anyone. Yura suggested that instead of making assumptions, they should wait until Young-soo and Pil-won finished checking everything in the security room. After some time, Jung-soo and Pil-won finally came out of the security room and approached the rest of the group. Jung-soo informed everyone that there was actually nothing to investigate because they had already received a phone call from Nana. According to him, Nana had explained that she had gone out for a walk and had been unable to return because the landslide had blocked the road. He further claimed that she had met the groundskeeper in the city and was currently staying with him until the road was reopened. Hearing that explanation immediately relieved everyone, as they believed Nana was safe. However, Chi-seong still could not ignore one detail that did not make sense. He calmly questioned that if Nana was truly safe and had simply gone for a walk, then he could not understand why her shoe had been found near the landslide. The question instantly irritated Jung-soo. Losing his patience, he angrily shouted that perhaps she had simply decided to leave without wearing her shoes. His explanation sounded forced, but he clearly had no intention of discussing the matter any further. Pil-won quickly stepped in before the argument could continue. He informed everyone that the workers had estimated it would take approximately 2 days to completely clear the blocked road. Because of that, he instructed everyone to carefully follow whatever directions he gave over the next 2 days. He emphasized that nobody was allowed to speak about what had happened at the villa and insisted that everyone should keep their mouths shut until the situation was over. Jikyeol then addressed all of the women and reminded them of the rules that had always existed regarding gatherings like this. He explained that everything that happened at the villa had to remain completely confidential. If the media discovered that Jung-soo had become stranded there with them, it would create a major scandal, and every single person present could end up facing serious consequences. To reassure them, he promised that Jung-soo would reward all of them with expensive gifts once everything was over. He then asked everyone to hand over their mobile phones so that no information could accidentally be leaked while they remained stranded at the villa. Upon hearing that they would be staying for another 2 days, Marie remarked that if they were going to remain at the villa for 2 more days, then it also meant they would be earning even more money. Soon afterward, the girls headed outside to the swimming pool. Jung-soo was standing together with Pil-won while watching everyone around the villa. As he looked at the others enjoying themselves, he remarked that it was a good thing everyone present was obediently following Pil-won's instructions without causing any problems. After saying that, he asked Pil-won about his plans for handling the situation over the next couple of days. While speaking, his attention shifted toward Yura, who was outside with the others. Pointing in her direction, he casually told Pil-won that he could spend the gym session with her if he wanted to, before adding that perhaps he himself would have a gym sesh with Yura later that day. Pil-won immediately frowned after hearing those words. He reminded Jung-soo that someone might actually be dead at that very moment and told him that he should pull himself together instead of thinking about such things. Jung-soo, however, showed no sign of guilt or concern. He bluntly replied that he had not killed Nana and insisted that she had gone outside entirely on her own. He coldly added that if anything had happened to her, then she had brought it upon herself. Since nobody knew the truth yet, he believed there was no point worrying about uncertain possibilities. He then accused Pil-won of deliberately changing the subject and mockingly remarked that Pil-won always behaved as though he were morally superior, even though, according to Jung-soo, he was no different from the rest of them. Realizing that continuing the conversation would serve no purpose, Pil-won silently decided to leave without saying another word. Meanwhile, Chi-seong was busy in the kitchen preparing lunch for everyone. As he worked, he carefully thought about their current situation. Since the landslide had trapped all of them at the villa, he estimated that if they used their supplies wisely, the available food should be enough to last for the next 2 days. While continuing to cook, his thoughts drifted toward Jung-soo's behavior. He could not help feeling that Jung-soo's attitude throughout the entire situation had been unbelievably disrespectful and insensitive. However, he immediately tried to stop himself from thinking negatively. He reminded himself that Jung-soo was the person paying him generously, and because of that, he felt he should not allow such thoughts to influence him. While he remained lost in his thoughts, Yena quietly entered the kitchen from behind. She approached him and reminded him about the back workout they had shared the previous night. She admitted that she had originally wanted to accompany him to the city so they could spend more time training together again. However, now that everyone was stranded inside the villa because of the landslide, she accepted that there was nothing either of them could do about it. Chi-seong immediately became nervous after seeing her. Worried that someone might walk into the kitchen at any moment, he quietly urged Yena to leave before anyone discovered them together. Unfortunately, before she had the chance to leave, Yura suddenly entered the kitchen and asked Chi-seong whether lunch was almost ready. Startled by Yura's unexpected arrival, Yena quickly hid herself beneath the table to avoid being seen. Remaining completely concealed, she secretly began teasing Chi-seong by initiating another stretching session with him from underneath the table. Chi-seong tried his best to maintain a calm expression despite feeling extremely uncomfortable and embarrassed by the unexpected situation. Completely unaware of what was happening beneath the table, Yura casually continued talking with him. She admitted that she had been worried about Nana for no reason after hearing that she was supposedly safe. Chi-seong forced himself to remain composed and agreed that it had been a great relief to hear that Nana was all right. Although he answered her normally, inwardly he was struggling to hide his discomfort because of Yena's actions beneath the table while trying not to reveal anything through his expressions. After finishing the conversation, Yura quietly left the kitchen and walked outside by herself. Once she was alone, the expression on her face slowly changed. She tightly held the yellow raincoat in her hands as tears began filling her eyes. Looking at it, she could no longer suppress the thoughts that had been troubling her. Deep down, she knew that something about the entire situation did not feel right. Clutching the raincoat even more tightly, she silently cried while thinking that every one of them was lying to hide the truth. Jung-soo looked around at all the girls, thinking that they were all trapped in the same place. Just a day earlier, they had been treating him with so much kindness, yet now it was obvious to him that they were only desperate for money. While observing them, his attention was drawn to the tattoo on Marie's back, and he asked whether it held any special meaning. Marie casually replied that it did not. She explained that she had simply gone to the best tattoo artist she could find and asked him to draw something beautiful, so he had created that design for her. Hearing her explanation, Jung-soo remarked that she was such a mindless girl. Marie defended herself by saying that it was only a fashion trend. Jung-soo then told her that he wanted to begin the private PT sessions with her to expand her gym knowledge. Although Marie hesitated for a moment, she eventually agreed because she would be paid in return. However, just as she had gotten herself ready, Jung-soo burst into laughter and admitted that he had only been joking. He mockingly told her that he could never spend that kind of money on someone like her because she was not any sort of celebrity. He then dismissed her by telling her to finish her shift while he went off to take a nap. Marie was left standing there in complete embarrassment as all the other girls witnessed the incident and began making fun of her. Afterward, Jung-soo went to Pil-hwan and told him everything that had happened. However, Pil-hwan appeared extremely serious and informed him that he had just received a call from the president. He explained that he had told the president they were in the countryside dealing with a contractor and urged Jung-soo to hurry up and call him immediately. Jung-soo then went into a room and called his father, who was the president. As soon as the call connected, his father began shouting at him. Jung-soo tried to justify himself by explaining that he only wanted to see how everyone would react to the alternative offer. Despite his explanation, his father continued scolding him relentlessly. After enduring a lengthy lecture, Jung-soo finally ended the call and sat there looking extremely frustrated. Meanwhile, Chi-seong was in the kitchen preparing lunch when Yura approached him. She told him that she did not mind helping because she had nothing else to do. She then asked whether he usually worked as a chef. Chi-seong explained that he had earned a culinary degree and had spent many years working part-time at different restaurants. He admitted that he had tried almost everything over the years, but still felt that he was not particularly exceptional at any one thing. Yura encouraged him by saying that one day all of his hard work and experience would surely pay off. Chi-seong smiled and replied that, in reality, being born rich was far more important than working hard. His comment made both of them laugh. Yura then sincerely told him that he was far more impressive than the wealthy people staying there because everything he had achieved was through his own hard work and determination, unlike some of the others. Their conversation was overheard by Jung-soo, who had just entered the kitchen. He asked whether lunch was ready, and Chi-seong replied that he had prepared sandwiches and salad. Young-soo then coldly reminded Chisong that no one had told him that Yura was there to help him. He arrogantly stated that everyone present had been brought there because he had paid for them, meaning they were all there solely for him. Yura tried to explain that she had chosen to help Chiseong of her own free will, but Jung-soo cut her off and reminded her that she was being paid by him, so she should only be working for him. He then turned to Chiseong and asked if he had any problem with that. Feeling uncomfortable, Yura decided to leave the kitchen, saying that she would stop helping. However, Young-soo grabbed her before she could walk away and told her not to change the subject. He then turned back to Chiseong and firmly warned him that, while he was staying there, he should not try to talk to any of the women. Young-soo made it clear that he had not brought all of those women there for Chiseong to socialize with, and insisted that he should understand his place. Having delivered his warning, Jung-soo turned around and walked out of the kitchen. Young-soo looked at Pilwon with a serious expression and asked whether he was absolutely certain that his father still had no idea he was there. He wanted reassurance because the last thing he wanted was for his father to discover his whereabouts before everything had been settled. Pilwon calmly assured him that there was nothing to worry about. He explained that he had already instructed the construction company director to tell Young-soo's father that Young-soo was currently with them, making sure that no suspicion would arise. Hearing that, Young-soo nodded but immediately reminded him not to become careless. He told Pilhwan to call them once again and make sure they continued clearing the debris without any delay, as the work needed to move forward exactly as planned. Pilhwan reassured him once more, telling him not to worry so much because it was not as if they could leave the place immediately anyway. He gestured toward all the guests gathered throughout the villa and reminded Jung-soo that he had spent a considerable amount of money to arrange the entire gathering. Since everyone was already there for his entertainment, there was no reason for him to waste his time thinking about problems that could not be solved at that very moment. Jung-soo let out a quiet sigh and admitted that Pilwon was right. He remarked that he had come there only to relieve some of his stress and forget about everything else for a while. As he looked around the villa, his eyes eventually landed on So-yura. He pointed in her direction and commented that she bothered him more than anyone else there. He could not understand how someone could be so innocent while also being so unbelievably beautiful at the same time. Her appearance and personality seemed completely different from the other women around her, making her stand out without even trying. Curious about her, Jung-soo asked Pilwon if he knew anything more about her. Pilwon replied that everything she had said about herself earlier was true and that there was nothing fabricated in her story. Jung-soo remained thoughtful for a moment before asking Pilwon about his own experience during the gym session with her. However, instead of answering, Pilwon simply remained silent. His expression changed slightly, but he deliberately avoided giving any response, leaving Jung-soo to wonder why he had chosen not to say anything. After some time had passed, Jung-soo wandered alone through different areas of the villa. As he walked around, he found himself thinking that despite what he had said earlier, he had not truly come there to relieve his stress. His mind continued to wander back to the problems waiting for him outside, making it impossible for him to fully enjoy the atmosphere. While walking through the villa, his attention shifted toward Jikyo, who was comfortably sitting beside Yena. Watching the two together, Jung-soo assumed that Jikyo probably believed Yena was there especially for him. Meanwhile, Yena and Jikyo were having a relaxed conversation about Jikyo's channel, discussing it among themselves without paying attention to anyone else. Jung-soo eventually walked over and joined them without asking for permission. Looking directly at Jikyo, he remarked that if they were going to discuss the future of the channel, then he should also be included in the conversation. After all, he reminded him that he was the biggest sponsor supporting the channel financially. He then commented that the entire channel revolved around showcasing beautiful girls, which was the main reason people watched it in the first place. Hearing those words, Yena looked at Jung-soo and asked whether he did not think she was beautiful as well. Jung-soo examined her for a brief moment, before honestly replying that she was not as beautiful as the girls he was normally used to seeing. He openly admitted that those girls were far more attractive than she was. Although his words were blunt, Yena did not seem intimidated by them. Instead, she confidently replied that regardless of her appearance, she would perform perfectly whenever she stood in front of a camera. She believed that her confidence and ability would be enough to impress anyone watching. Hearing her confident response, Jung-soo gave a faint smile and remarked that perhaps she should prove those words through a small test. He decided that the best way to judge her was by putting her through a brief backtraining himself. Just as he made that decision, Jikyo stood up from his seat and said that he was going outside. Before he could take another step, Jung-soo immediately stopped him and told him to remain seated, because their discussion was not over yet. He reminded Jikyo that they were still talking about whether he should continue sponsoring the channel in the future. Jung-soo then stated that he would personally evaluate Yena's abilities for himself, and once he had confirmed her skills, Jikyul could have her afterward. With that decision made, Youngsu turned his attention entirely toward Yena and began the backsesh with her. Chiseong carefully walked over to Soyura with a tray in his hands and politely offered her a drink. As he handed the glass to her, he explained that he had been instructed by the authorities to serve drinks to everyone present at the villa, and that he was simply carrying out the task he had been assigned. Yura accepted the drink and gently told him not to worry so much about everything. Her calm response briefly eased his mind, but he quickly reminded himself that it would be better not to continue talking to her. As he walked away, he silently thought that he should stop speaking with her because Jungsu might become suspicious or say something if he noticed them interacting too much. Not wanting to create unnecessary problems, Chiseong forced himself to remain professional and continued serving the other guests. A short while later, he approached Bronze to offer her a drink as well. After taking the glass from him, Bronze asked whether he thought they would finally be able to leave the villa the following day. Chiseong replied that he believed they would and that everything should be over by then. While looking at Bronze, he quietly found himself thinking about how beautiful she really was. However, another thought immediately crossed his mind. He found it strange that, despite her beauty, she did not seem to be enjoying herself as much as he had expected. Since she had already earned a considerable amount of money by that point, he had assumed she would be satisfied and more cheerful, but instead, she appeared surprisingly indifferent. Her attitude was completely different from what he had imagined. Meanwhile, everyone present gradually turned their attention toward Jungsu and Yena as the two began the upper-lower training together. The activity immediately attracted the interest of the guests, who watched the scene unfold with curiosity. Among them, Marie observed Yena and commented that she was doing all of it solely for the sake of money. Bronze laughed after hearing Marie's remark and agreed without hesitation. She replied that Youngsu was the easiest target whenever someone wanted to make money because he was willing to pay generously. She reminded everyone that he had promised to pay them every single time they participated in a juicy back workout with him. Bronze reasoned that if they joined him now, they could do less work while still receiving the same amount of money, making it an easy win for them. After saying that, she turned toward Yura and remarked that no one should feel pressured to go if they did not want to. She added that she personally intended to take advantage of the opportunity and earn as much money from Jungsu as possible while she had the chance. As Chiseong listened to their conversation from nearby, he quietly assumed that Soyura must have come to the villa for exactly the same reason as everyone else, to earn money. That thought lingered in his mind as he continued serving the guests, even though Yura's behavior had seemed noticeably different from the others throughout the evening. After watching Marie and Bronze prepare to leave, Bronze turned towards Soyura and suggested that she should come with them. She explained that it would be better for Yura to go while everyone else was going because Jungsu would be much more difficult to deal with if he decided to make a move on her later when she was all by herself. Yura quietly shook her head and refused the invitation. She explained that it was simply because she had never tried gymming with multiple people together before, and she did not feel comfortable joining them. Bronze looked at her for a moment but did not try to persuade her any further. Soon afterward, both Marie and Bronze headed back inside the villa, leaving Yura standing outside. Chiseong watched them leave and found himself caught in an awkward situation. He quietly thought that if everyone was returning inside to participate in the back workout, then he could not simply go back into the house because it would interrupt them. At the same time, remaining outside alone with Yura also felt extremely awkward to him. As he stood there wondering what to do, Yura suddenly looked at him with a gentle smile and suggested that they should leave the villa for a while and explore the surrounding area. She added that it would also allow them to escape from Jungsu's prying eyes, at least for a little while. Chiseong immediately became nervous after hearing her suggestion. He hesitated for a brief moment, uncertain whether it was the right decision, but eventually agreed and quietly followed her. The two of them then left the villa together. From a distance, Pilwan happened to notice both of them walking away side by side. Without saying a word, he silently watched as they disappeared from his sight. Meanwhile, inside the villa, Jikyo continued recording Jungsu and all of the girls as they participated in the gym session together. Everything appeared normal until Jungsu happened to glance outside through one of the large windows. The moment he looked outside, his entire expression changed. Standing in the darkness beyond the glass was Sun Nana, her entire body seemingly covered in blood. The horrifying sight completely terrified him. His body instantly froze, and he became numb with shock for a brief moment, unable to move or even think clearly. Noticing his unusual reaction, Jikyo immediately asked whether he was all right. Still staring toward the window with fear visible across his face, Jungsu quietly replied that he had just seen a woman. Elsewhere, Chiseong and Yura had wandered away from the villa and eventually stopped beside a peaceful pond. They sat together on a large rock near the water, away from everyone else. Looking around at the calm scenery, Yura smiled with genuine happiness and remarked that everyone else seemed to be so caught up chasing material satisfaction whereas all she truly wanted was to return home. Hearing her words, Chiseong silently remembered seeing her together with Pilwan the previous night. Unable to ignore what he had witnessed, he remarked that it was not as though they had only spent a single night there, let alone simply being together for a short time. Before he could continue thinking the wrong thing, Yura immediately asked him not to misunderstand the situation. She firmly explained that nothing had happened between her and Pilwan the previous night. She honestly admitted that she had originally come to the villa for the money, just like everyone else. However, after experiencing the harsh reality of the place during the previous night, she had completely changed her mind and now refused to participate in any private PT sessions. Hearing those sincere words filled Chiseong with relief and quiet happiness. At the same time, Yura silently wondered what he truly thought about her. Even though she worked at a bar, she reflected that she had never gone beyond second base with anyone. Nevertheless, she believed that he probably saw her as nothing more than a cheap girl because of her occupation. Before she could say those thoughts aloud, Chiseong immediately denied them. He assured her that he had never imagined anything like that about her. He explained that if he himself had not been brought to the villa, he would never have even dreamed of becoming involved in such situations. He then mentioned Pilwan, saying that although Pilwan had always been a little strange, he had once been an incredibly innocent person. Looking back on everything that had happened, Chiseong sadly remarked that Pilwan had changed so much that he hardly seemed like the same person anymore. Curious about their relationship, Yura asked whether he and Pilwan had been friends even before this party. Chiseong nodded and replied that they had known each other since before high school and had been friends for many years. Hearing that answer, Yura quietly realized that Chiseong had not come there as nothing more than a simple part-time worker. There was clearly a much deeper connection between him and Pilwan than she had initially believed. After sitting there for a while longer, Chiseong glanced back toward the direction of the villa and suggested that they should return. He explained that everyone inside would probably become suspicious and panic if they realized that the two of them had gone outside together without telling anyone. Before he could stand up, Yura suddenly stepped closer to him and wrapped her arms around him in a gentle embrace. Holding him close, she softly asked whether he wanted to know the real reason she had rejected every offer made by those men. Chiseong stood frozen for a moment after Yura embraced him. Her sudden closeness made his heart race, and he instinctively wondered if she actually had feelings for him. However, almost immediately, he forced himself to push that thought aside. He reminded himself that none of the girls at the villa were ordinary, and that Yura was probably no different from Yena or anyone else. He believed that allowing himself to become emotionally involved would only lead to disappointment. Another thought quickly crossed his mind as well. If Jung-soo ever found out about what was happening between him and Yura, then any chance he had of becoming an employee at Jung-soo's corporation would disappear completely. That opportunity meant too much for him to risk everything over a moment of emotion. Trying to regain his composure, Chiseong gently moved back and honestly told Yura that he was not sure about his own feelings. He explained that he did not have any special feelings for Miss Yura, at least not yet. Instead of becoming upset by his response, Yura looked directly into his eyes and quietly confessed that she had developed feelings for him. Her confession left Chiseong speechless for several moments because he had never expected her to say something so sincere. After sharing their feelings, the two of them decided to hit upper body there, away from the villa where no one could disturb them. The peaceful atmosphere around the pond made the place feel much calmer than the villa itself. However, just as they were together, Chiseong suddenly noticed what seemed to be a shadow standing somewhere nearby. Before he could clearly identify it, a large rock suddenly came flying toward them from nowhere. Reacting purely on instinct, he immediately pulled Yura out of the way and shielded her from the incoming rock. Once the danger had passed, he anxiously asked whether she was all right. Still confused by what had just happened, he remarked that the rock had appeared out of nowhere and insisted that they had been completely safe only moments earlier. As he checked on her condition, he noticed that, although she had avoided the rock itself, one of her feet had been injured during the incident. Meanwhile, back inside the villa, Young-soo was still with Jicheol. After searching around the property, Jicheol informed him that he had carefully checked the pool area and had not found anyone there. He then cautiously asked Jung-soo whether he was truly searching for the woman named Sun Nana or whether what he had seen had simply been a hallucination. Jung-soo did not answer the question directly. Instead, he quietly stated that he was going to rest for a while and told Jicheol that he should go outside. Without pressing the matter any further, Jicheol left the room. Afterward, he found Pilwan and suggested that he should speak with Young-soo because he believed Young-soo had become extremely frightened after seeing what might have been a hallucination. While talking to him, Jicheol suddenly noticed dirt covering Pilwan's hands. Curious about it, he looked at him questioningly. Pilwan casually explained that he had simply been picking up trash around the garden and said that he would go wash his hands immediately. At that exact moment, Chiseong entered the villa while helping the injured Yura walk inside. She was stumbling because of the pain in her injured foot, and Chiseong carefully supported her so she would not fall. The moment he saw Jishio, Chiseong urgently asked him to bring a first aid kit so that Yura's injury could be treated. Pilwan looked at the two of them only briefly before silently walking away without offering any help. Watching him leave, Chiseong found his behavior extremely strange. He quietly thought that it was odd how Pilwan did not seem to care at all that someone had been injured. There was not even the slightest concern visible on his face. Pilwan then entered the restroom with an extremely frustrated expression, his emotions clearly visible despite his attempts to hide them. After composing himself for a short while, he left the restroom and went to find Jung-soo. Once he reached him, Pilwan quietly asked whether he had really seen Sun Nana. Jung-soo firmly insisted that what he had seen was real. He explained that the woman standing outside the window had definitely been Sun Nana, the same woman who had gone missing. He described how she had been standing right in front of him with her entire body covered in injuries and blood before suddenly disappearing without any trace. The memory continued to haunt him, and he was convinced that it had not been his imagination. Pilwan listened carefully before trying to calm him down. He suggested that perhaps Jung-soo had experienced a hallucination because if Sun Nana had truly been there in such a badly injured condition, she would have asked someone for help instead of disappearing into thin air. Hearing those words immediately angered Jung-soo. He raised his voice and shouted that he was not crazy enough to mistake a hallucination for reality. He insisted that he had not imagined seeing a ghost or anything similar because such a thing was impossible. Pilwan remained calm despite Jung-soo's outburst. He remarked that he had never realized Jung-soo possessed such a compassionate side. He explained that the more a person worried about someone, the more likely they were to hallucinate that individual. According to him, Jung-soo had always acted as though he did not care about Sun Nana, but deep down he was actually concerned about her safety. Those hidden feelings were probably what had caused him to believe he had seen her. Jung-soo gradually became quieter as he considered Pilwan's explanation. After thinking about it for a moment, he admitted that Pilwan might actually be right. He confessed that ever since Sun Nana had disappeared, he had continuously wondered what had really happened to her. Pilwan reassured him that every problem had a cause, and that whatever had happened to Sun Nana, he would make sure everything was properly taken care of. He told Jung-soo not to burden himself with worrying about it any longer, because he would handle everything personally. Pilwan then reminded him that he was the future head of the corporation, and should focus on matters that deserved his attention. Changing the subject, he informed Jung-soo that someone outside had apparently been injured, and suggested that he should go and check on the situation himself. Meanwhile, Chiseong carefully finished wrapping a bandage around Yura's injured foot. After making sure it was secure, he gently told her that she had not suffered any broken bones and that the injury appeared to be only superficial. He advised her to be careful about preventing an infection but assured her that, other than that, she would be perfectly fine. Everyone gathered nearby felt relieved after hearing that her injury was not serious. Yura looked at Chiseong with concern and asked whether he was all right because he had also fallen quite hard while protecting her from the rock. Chiseong simply smiled and assured her that he was completely fine and that she did not need to worry about him. While the two of them were talking, Jung-soo suddenly arrived and immediately began questioning what had happened. Looking suspiciously at both of them, he demanded to know the real reason they had been together outside and how they had ended up getting injured. Chiseong instantly became nervous under Jung-soo's intense gaze. Trying to avoid creating further trouble, he explained that it had simply been a small accident and nothing more. Jung-soo refused to accept that explanation. He accused the two of them of secretly flirting behind everyone's backs instead of telling the truth. Turning directly toward Chiseong, he reminded him that he had already warned him never to go anywhere with any of the girls without first receiving his permission. Before Chiseong could respond, Yura suddenly raised her voice and confronted Jung-soo herself. She angrily asked whether she really needed his permission just to get hurt in an accident. Her bold response immediately irritated Jung-soo even more. He sharply told her not to raise her voice at him like that. Seeing the situation becoming increasingly tense, Chiseong stepped forward and tried to calm Jung-soo down before things escalated further. However, Jung-soo took that as an act of defiance. Furious, he suddenly raised his hand and attempted to slap Chiseong across the face. Before the slap could land, Chiseong instinctively caught Jung-soo's wrist and firmly stopped him. Looking directly at him, Chiseong calmly but firmly declared that enough was enough. The sudden confrontation shocked everyone present. Realizing that the situation could quickly become much worse, Pilwan immediately instructed all of the girls to go upstairs without getting involved. Although Yura refused to leave because she did not want to abandon Chiseong, Bronze quickly stopped her and warned that trying to interfere would only bring even bigger trouble upon herself. Reluctantly, Yura gave in, and she left with the other girls. Once they had all gone upstairs, Pilwan grabbed hold of Jung-soo and repeatedly urged him to calm himself down. He then guided Jung-soo away from everyone else and took him into another room before the confrontation could escalate any further. In another room, All of the girls gathered together and began discussing everything that had just happened downstairs. Bronze was the first to break the silence. She warned everyone that they should not celebrate what had happened because Jungsu's pride had been badly hurt in front of everyone. According to her, Jungsu was the kind of man who would spend money whenever he felt like it and could be incredibly generous when he was in a good mood. However, when his anger was provoked, he became completely unpredictable, almost like a wild animal that no one could control. Bronze then revealed something she had previously heard from Nana. She explained that there had once been another girl who had been beaten by Jungsu during one of his outbursts. Although he had eventually covered up the entire incident with money, the damage had already been done. The girl had spent several weeks in the hospital recovering from her injuries, yet even after all that time, her face had never returned to how it had looked before. After sharing that story, Bronze looked seriously at all of the girls and urged them to be extremely careful whenever they were around Jungsu. She warned them that if they did not want to lose their lives there or end up completely isolated from society because of him, they needed to stay out of his way whenever possible. Hearing such a frightening story immediately unsettled everyone in the room. Marie nervously admitted that Bronze's words were making her scared. She announced that she was going outside for a while and told the others not to worry because she would make sure to avoid crossing Jungsu's path. However, as she walked away, Marie quietly thought to herself that if she could somehow improve Jungsu's mood while everyone else was avoiding him, she might receive something valuable in return for it. Meanwhile, Chi-seong sat alone, overwhelmed with regret over everything that had happened. He blamed himself for allowing the situation to spiral out of control and quietly thought that he should probably forget about his dream of securing a position at the corporation. At the rate things were going, he believed he might even be thrown out of the villa without receiving any payment at all. The heavy silence surrounding him only made him feel worse. Sitting there without saying a word, he felt exactly like a child waiting to be punished for making a serious mistake. Elsewhere, Pilwon quietly spoke with Jikyo and suggested that they should try talking to Jungsu privately. He explained that Jungsu had become extremely sensitive because his father had recently scolded him and that his emotions were already unstable before everything else had happened. Pilwon insisted that their first priority should be cheering Jungsu up because if they failed to improve his mood, he would remain in that angry state for the rest of the gathering. He added that Jungsu was actually a simple man who found happiness in simple pleasures, so calming him down should not be impossible if they approached him the right way. Unbeknownst to either of them, Marie happened to overhear their entire conversation from nearby. After listening carefully, she immediately came up with an idea of her own. Without telling anyone, she quietly walked toward Jungsu's room, entered inside, and locked the door behind her. Jungsu was visibly frustrated when he saw her enter unexpectedly. Before he could ask why she was there, Marie smiled and told him that she had come to cheer him up. Jungsu replied that she would not be able to improve his mood. Remaining confident, Marie answered that she obviously could. She then leaned closer and revealed that she had a feeling something suspicious was going on between Yura and Chi-seong. Those words immediately caught Jungsu's attention. After hearing her suspicion, Jungsu's expression gradually changed as an idea formed in his mind. He declared that he would make sure Yura trains back in front of Chi-seong so that Chi-seong would learn a lesson he would never forget. The thought of humiliating him in that way finally seemed to satisfy Jungsu, and his frustration began to fade. Feeling pleased with the idea, he simply replied that it sounded good. Afterward, his attention shifted back to Marie, and he suggested that the two of them should hit some back exercises together instead. Marie willingly agreed to it. Jikyo told Chi-seong that the only way to resolve the situation was to kneel before Jungsu and sincerely beg for forgiveness. He believed that if Chi-seong humbled himself and apologized properly, everything would return to normal, as if nothing had happened. However, Chi-seong immediately rejected the idea, insisting that he had done absolutely nothing wrong. He could not understand why he should bow his head before someone younger than himself, and he firmly stated that Jungsu was younger than him, making it even more humiliating to kneel in front of him. Jikyo patiently explained that Jungsu was not actually a bad person. He said that although Jungsu often acted harshly and aggressively at first, anyone who truly got to know him would realize that he was different underneath. According to Jikyo, Jungsu only behaved that way initially, and once he calmed down, he understood people surprisingly well and could read their thoughts and personalities better than most. Chi-seong stared at him in disbelief and questioned whether he had really become that submissive. He pointed out that even after witnessing Yena being humiliated and treated so terribly right in front of him, Jikyo had not spoken a single word in her defense. Chi-seong accused him of having no pride left and asked how he could continue serving someone after seeing such a thing with his own eyes. Those words frustrated Jikyo greatly. He replied that pride did not pay his bills, nor did it put food on his table. He admitted that he would rather continue living the way he was now because, despite sacrificing his pride, he could at least live a comfortable life. He said that was still better than clinging to meaningless pride while struggling to survive every single day. Jikyul then pleaded with Chi Seong to listen to him just this once. He reminded him that he had been the one who got him this job in the first place, and now he was begging him because he had no other choice. He confessed that he was drowning in debt after recklessly trying to earn money through stock trading. Instead of making a profit, he had lost everything, and the losses continued to pile up every day. As a result, dangerous loan sharks constantly threatened him over the unpaid interest on his loans, making his life a living nightmare. Hearing that, Chi Seong asked in shock whether Jikyul had really gone to such dangerous people just to borrow money. Jikyul admitted that he had. He revealed that there had been a time when he had become so hopeless that he had seriously considered ending his life by jumping off a bridge because he could no longer bear the overwhelming pressure. It was during that darkest moment of his life that he met Young-soo. Although he still had debts remaining, Young-soo had saved him from his immediate crisis and protected him from the danger surrounding him. Furthermore, Young-soo had promised that once the party was over, he would give Jicheol enough money to completely pay off the rest of his loans. Because of that kindness, Jicheol sincerely begged Chi Seong as his close friend to help him this one time and not ruin everything. Meanwhile, Jung-soo was in the middle of a wholesome gym sesh with Marie when Jicheol entered the room. He informed Jung-soo that Chi Seong wanted to apologize, and added that Chi Seong had even said he was willing to kneel before him if necessary. Jicheol then suggested that, if Young-soo wished, he could bring Chi Seong inside immediately. Young-soo calmly accepted the suggestion, and casually told him to send Chi Seong in. A few moments later, Chi Seong entered the room. The moment he saw Jung-soo and Marie together in the middle of their back exercises, he felt deeply disgusted, but he forced himself to ignore those feelings. Swallowing his pride, he apologized to Jung-soo and admitted that although Jung-soo had specifically ordered him to stay away from the girls, he had disobeyed those instructions and had tried to help Yura without asking for permission first. Jung-soo looked directly at him and remarked that Chi Seong had truly dared to look down on him. He explained that what irritated him the most was not simply Chi Seong's actions but the attitude he had shown from the very beginning. Jung-soo reminded him that he had already paid him more than a month's worth of wages, an amount that Chi Seong could never have dreamed of earning under normal circumstances. On top of that, he had even promised him a position in his company once everything was over. Considering everything he had already offered him, Young-soo stated that it would not have been strange if Chi Seong had addressed him as his master instead of treating him with disrespect. Hearing those words, Chi Seong lowered his head once again before slowly dropping onto his knees. He apologized repeatedly and promised that from that moment onward, he would obey every order Young-soo gave him without questioning anything. The only request he made in return was that Young-soo should not hurt Yura any further, because she was already injured and had suffered enough. After listening to his apology, Young-soo reached over and handed Chi Seong an expensive luxury watch. He told him that it was a reward for showing loyalty and obedience. Young-soo proudly remarked that he was actually a generous person who knew how to reward those who followed him faithfully and carried out his orders properly. After receiving the watch, Chi Seong and Jicheol quietly left the room together. As they walked away, Chi Seong kept staring at the luxurious watch resting in his hand. He realized that it was worth far more than the money he had originally been paid for coming there. Despite everything that had happened, he could not deny the satisfaction growing inside him. He found himself genuinely pleased after receiving something so valuable, and that realization left him with mixed emotions. As soon as they stepped outside, they encountered Pilwon standing nearby. Jicheol informed him that Jung-soo was in a much better mood now, and that everything had gone smoothly. Pilhwan glanced at Chi Seong before quietly thinking to himself that the hardest part had only just begun. He believed that Chi Seong was slowly becoming like an animal that had no choice but to submit to its master. Watching everything unfold exactly as expected, Pilhwan silently thought that his plan for revenge was progressing perfectly, and that he was fully prepared to see it through until the very end. Meanwhile, back inside the room, Jung-soo remained with Marie and commented that Chi Seong might actually have feelings for Yura. He remarked that the situation was becoming more interesting because he was curious whether Chi Seong would truly remain silent when the time eventually came for Yura to obey him instead. Marie replied that such a possibility was very likely. She believed that Chi Seong would probably keep all of his anger bottled up inside because, in the end, he would never dare challenge or speak against Jung-soo. She also pointed out that the expensive reward Jung-soo had just given him was worth far more than Chi Seong could ever deserve. Jung-soo smiled after hearing that and explained that people always tried much harder when they were rewarded generously. According to him, the more valuable the rewards became, the more desperately people wanted to earn even greater ones. Looking at Marie, he casually remarked that if she continued serving him well and remained loyal, perhaps he would reward her with something even better in the future. Yura suddenly woke up from a horrifying dream, her heart pounding uncontrollably. In the dream, she had seen her sister standing on the edge of a balcony, preparing to end her life. Panicked, Yura desperately ran toward her, reaching out and begging her not to do it. She tried everything she could to stop her, but her sister calmly told her that she was doing it for the sake of their family and that there was no other choice left for her. Before Yura could reach her, her sister stepped off the balcony and fell. The terrifying sight caused Yura to wake up in shock. As she struggled to catch her breath, she became increasingly worried about her sister and began thinking that perhaps Nana had been lying to her all along. Her thoughts drifted back to the day she had met Nana. It was raining heavily at the time, and Yura had gone to meet her while wearing a raincoat. The moment they met, Yura anxiously asked whether Nana had discovered anything after checking Jung-soo. Nana replied that she had found absolutely nothing on Jung-soo's body. She confidently stated that there was nothing unusual whatsoever and insisted that whatever Yura's sister had said about the mysterious red dot definitely could not have been referring to Jung-soo. Nana explained that she had checked his body countless times just to make absolutely sure that she had not missed anything. Still unconvinced, Yura replied that if it was not Jung-soo, then she wanted to know who it could possibly be. She reminded Nana that she had previously claimed the person responsible was one of the men present there. Nana responded that she honestly did not know anymore. She suggested that perhaps Yura's sister had simply been talking nonsense because she had not even been in a proper state of mind when she mentioned the red dot. Nana then reminded Yura that she had fulfilled her promise by bringing her there and checking Jung-soo's body on her behalf. As far as she was concerned, her part of the deal was finished. She admitted that her only remaining objective now was to gather enough evidence to prove that Jung-soo was a drug dealer so she could earn money from exposing him. Hearing that completely changed Yura's expression. She reminded Nana that she had originally promised they would work together to uncover the truth behind her sister's case. Yura questioned whether exposing Jung-soo had actually been Nana's true objective from the very beginning. Nana admitted that she had needed evidence somehow and then bluntly advised Yura to stop chasing revenge for her sister. She told her that instead of wasting her time fighting a battle that had already been lost, she should simply join people like her and focus on making money instead. Nana compared Yura to her sister, saying that both of them were fighting a hopeless battle that could never be won. She then suggested that Yura should go back inside if she understood what she meant, because she intended to stay outside and smoke one more cigarette. Before ending the conversation, Nana reminded Yura that she had promised to give her the full payment for helping her. She warned that if Yura failed to pay, she would expose everything by telling everyone the truth. Hearing that threat made Yura lose her composure. She immediately picked up a stone from the ground, grabbed Nana by the throat, and pressed her against the wall. While tightening her grip, she angrily asked whether Nana truly believed that everything she had been doing was merely for revenge. Overcome by rage, Yura struck Nana on the head with the stone. Returning to the present, Yura remained deep in thought. She concluded that there was no longer any reason to trust Nana's words. If she truly wanted the answers, there was only one option left. She would have to examine Jung-soo herself. While she was still lost in her thoughts, Marie suddenly entered her room and said that she wanted to speak with her. Marie advised Yura that she needed to apologize to Jung-soo because if she failed to do so, he would become angry, and all of them would end up suffering the consequences of his anger. Meanwhile, Chiseong was sitting outside by himself, quietly observing everyone around him. He could not understand how everyone present was behaving as though nothing had happened. In his mind, they were all trapped there, and countless terrible things had already taken place that day. Despite that, everyone continued drinking, laughing, and enjoying the party as if everything were completely normal. While lost in those thoughts, Chiseong served Jung-soo a glass of whiskey after Jung-soo requested it. Jung-soo then sat down beside Yura and casually began talking with her. After a moment, Jung-soo looked at Chiseong and asked why he was not wearing the expensive watch he had received earlier. Chiseong respectfully replied that he simply wanted to keep it somewhere safe because it was too valuable to risk damaging. Jung-soo responded by inviting him to join them for a drink. However, Chiseong politely declined the invitation. Seeing his refusal, Jung-soo told him that he should go and get some rest instead. Hearing that, Chiseong silently thought that it was probably the first thing Jung-soo had said that actually made any sense. Once Chiseong left, Jung-soo turned his attention back to Yura and gently asked about the condition of her injury. Yura calmly replied that she was fine and that she was feeling much better now. Watching the interaction from a distance, the other girls quietly assumed that Yura and Jung-soo had grown much closer to one another. Bronze commented that it seemed Yura had accepted her situation, adding that, in the end, all of them were there for the same reason, to earn money. Elsewhere, Chiseong shut himself inside his room and began exercising intensely, using the gym training as a way to release the frustration building inside him. As he continued pushing himself harder, countless thoughts ran through his mind. He bitterly reflected that he had even gone as far as kneeling for that woman because he genuinely believed she had feelings for him. Now he realized how mistaken he had been. He concluded that it actually made perfect sense for Yura to choose someone like Jung-soo instead of a poor man like himself. After all, Young-soo owned a luxurious house with a private gym and possessed everything that someone like Chi Seong could never hope to provide. While he continued exercising, the door suddenly opened, and Marie entered the room. Looking him up and down, she remarked that she had never realized he had such a well-built body. She noticed that he looked exhausted after exercising so intensely, and suggested that he should stop for a while and have a drink with her instead. Chi Seong told Marie that he did not really feel like having a drink with her. In response, Marie remarked that Yura had been the only girl he considered normal, yet now she was sitting beside Jung-soo as if nothing had happened. Chi Seong asked her to stop beating around the bush and tell him exactly what she meant. Marie sighed before honestly admitting that she had been the one who asked Yura for a favor. She explained that she had requested Yura to stay close to Jung-soo and help calm him down because his mood affected everyone around them. After revealing that much, Marie suggested that they sit down together and have a drink while they talked. Chi Seong eventually agreed and sat down with her, but he insisted that she explain everything she had hinted at earlier. Marie took a deep breath before telling him that, despite appearances, every girl in that place was living through a horrible situation. She explained that although they all looked glamorous and carefree on the outside, each of them had their own painful circumstances. Speaking about herself, Marie admitted that she had once started a beauty business, believing it would change her life for the better. Instead, the business failed and left her with even greater debts than she had before. She continued by saying that every other woman there also had her own reason for being present. Some had financial problems, while others had nowhere else to go, but all of them shared one thing in common: they had been pushed to the edge of bankruptcy. Chi Seong asked whether everyone's situation was truly that desperate. Marie nodded and explained that his friend, Jishiol, deliberately gathered people who had reached the very end of their lives financially. Hearing that, Chi Seong silently realized that everything finally made sense. There had to be a reason why all of them endured such humiliation despite receiving such generous payments. He also understood that Jikil specifically targeted people who had no other options left because they were far more willing to accept such work. Marie quickly added that she did not want Chi Seong to think badly of any of the girls. She explained that everything they were doing was because Jung-soo represented the last hope they had to save themselves from complete ruin. Listening to her words, Chi Seong quietly reflected that, in the end, all of them were trapped in the same situation. Although their circumstances differed, every one of them was desperately trying to survive. Still, he could not understand why Marie was telling him all of this, so he asked why she had decided to explain everything to him. Chi Seong told her that she did not need to worry about what he thought of her or the other women because they could simply ignore him if they wanted. Marie gently shook her head and replied that she was not really trying to explain herself but was simply talking about the reality they all lived in. She admitted that every other woman there was her competitor because the more Young-soo favored one of them, the more money that woman would receive. However, she did not need to be cautious around Chi Seong because he was not competing with her. She had already shown him her most shameless side, so there was nothing left for her to hide. As she finished speaking, tears slowly began rolling down her cheeks. Seeing her cry, Chi Seong felt guilty for judging her so harshly without understanding what she had been through. Since there were no tissues nearby, he quietly took off his shirt and handed it to her, telling her that she could use it to wipe away her tears. Marie accepted it before revealing a part of her past. She quietly said that when she was 16 years old, she came there hoping to find her Korean father. Back then, she had been innocent and full of hope, but now she had become nothing more than a worn-out woman whose life had taken a completely different path. Hearing those words, Chi Seong silently realized that her past must have been far more painful than he had initially imagined. Feeling sympathetic toward her, he gently asked her to stop crying. Marie then asked him to stay with her a little longer because she needed someone to lean on at that moment. Chi Seong hesitated before replying that it would not be a good idea because Jung-soo would definitely misunderstand the situation if he found the two of them together. Marie simply answered that it was all right. She walked over and quietly closed the door before returning. Then she lay down beside Chi Seong. With her lying so close to him, Chi Seong became noticeably uncomfortable and did not know how to react. Breaking the awkward silence, Marie suggested that the two of them should start doing training back together in the future. After thinking about it for a moment, Chi Seong agreed to her suggestion. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the house, Jung-soo was spending time with Yura when he called Jikyol over. He instructed him to tell his friend, Chi-sung, to bring some ice. While waiting, Jung-soo suddenly realized that he had not seen Marie for quite some time. Curious, he asked one of the other girls where she had gone. The girl casually replied that Marie had probably gone to the bathroom. Jung-soo narrowed his eyes before commenting that it always seemed to be Chi Seong and one of the girls who disappeared at the same time. He wondered whether something was happening between them behind everyone's backs. Growing suspicious, he instructed Jikil to go and look for Chi Seong. Without wasting any time, Jikil immediately headed inside and began searching through the rooms to find him. Jikil searched throughout the villa for Chi Seong, but was unable to find him anywhere. After checking several rooms without any success, he happened to run into Pilwan in the hallway. He immediately asked whether Pilwan had seen Chi Seong because Jungsu was looking for him and had specifically sent him to find him. Pilwan replied that no one had come upstairs except for himself. He suggested that if Chi Seong was not downstairs, Jikil should try searching around the front garden instead. As Jikil hurried away, Pilwan suddenly remembered seeing Marie enter one of the downstairs rooms earlier. Finding the timing suspicious, he decided to check the room himself. When he reached the door, he slowly opened it and was immediately surprised by what he saw inside. Marie and Chi Seong were in the middle of a wholesome gym session. The unexpected sight caught him completely off guard. The moment Marie noticed Pilwan standing in the doorway, she realized that the situation had become extremely dangerous. Without wasting a second, she burst into tears and desperately claimed that Chi Seong had forced her to do a high-volume back workout with him against her will. Before anyone could properly react, Jikil also arrived at the room after continuing his search. As soon as he stepped inside and witnessed the scene in front of him, the already tense situation became even worse. Pilwan stated that he had personally witnessed Chi Seong trying to give a wholesome PT lesson with Marie. The moment those words left his mouth, Chi Seong finally realized that everyone present was trying to frame him as the criminal. From behind the large glass door, Young-soo and Yura silently watched the entire confrontation unfold before their eyes. Yura quietly remarked that she thought she should leave now, but Young-soo stopped the situation from escalating further by instructing all of the girls to return inside. He told them that there was no reason for them to remain there any longer and that they should leave the entire matter to Pilwan to handle. Pilwan then turned toward Jikil and instructed him to take Marie outside and wait there until he finished dealing with the situation. As soon as Jikil and Marie left the room, Chi Seong suddenly grabbed Pilwan by the collar in frustration. He angrily accused everyone of trying to make him look like the criminal and demanded to know why they were treating him this way when he had done nothing deserving of such accusations. Pilwan remained calm and replied that he had merely testified about what he had personally witnessed with his own eyes. He further explained that if Chi Seong did not want Marie to file a lawsuit against him, then he should seek Jungsu's help because he believed Jungsu would be willing to resolve the matter. Chi Seong could not understand Pilwan's reasoning and questioned why he was being told to ask Jungsu for help instead of speaking directly to Marie herself. Rather than continuing the argument, Pilwan forcefully shoved Chi Seong backward before taking several ropes and tightly binding his hands and body. While securing the ropes, Pilwan declared that they could not allow a criminal to walk around freely because there were women in the villa whose safety had to be protected. He added that he hoped Chi Seong would change his attitude and come to his senses by the following morning. After finishing his words, Pilwan left the room, leaving Chi Seong restrained and completely alone. Meanwhile, Bronze and Yena escorted the frightened Marie into another room where they gently asked her to explain everything that had happened. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Marie burst into tears and claimed that Chi Seong had attempted to train back with her, while threatening that he would kill her if she resisted him. After listening to her story, Yena admitted that Chi Seong simply did not seem like the kind of person who would commit such a terrible act. Before anyone could continue the conversation, Jikil entered the room and instructed all of the girls to remain on the second floor. He warned them to stay there for their own safety so that they would not accidentally encounter Chi Seong. Bronze sighed heavily and commented that an unbelievable number of incidents had taken place within only a few days, making the atmosphere inside the villa increasingly chaotic. A little later, Yena stepped outside the room together with Jikil. Once they were alone, she confessed that she genuinely did not believe Chi Seong was capable of doing something like that. She reminded Jishel that he had been friends with Chi Seong and asked whether he truly believed that someone as gentle, sweet, and honest as him could actually commit such a crime. Jikil responded by telling her that they were not close enough to Chi Seong for her to defend him with such certainty. He then questioned whether she had even spent enough time with Chi Seong to truly understand what kind of person he was. Yena replied that whether she had spent time with him or not had nothing to do with the current situation because she was simply expressing what she honestly believed. Jikil advised her not to become involved in the matter for the time being. He instructed her to stay where she was, avoid taking any unnecessary action, and stop overthinking everything until the truth became clear. After saying those words, he quietly walked away, leaving Yena standing there deep in thought. Elsewhere inside another room, Chi Seong remained tightly bound with ropes and sat there feeling completely helpless. He could not believe that all of these terrible events were happening to him. In his heart, he decided that he no longer wanted to continue working at such a strange and disturbing place. He resolved that as soon as morning arrived, he would leave the villa behind forever, even if escaping meant climbing over the surrounding mountains by himself. On the other side of the villa, Young-soo was spending time alone with Yura. He asked her whether the earlier incident had frightened her and remarked that Chiseong had always been that kind of person. Yura responded by saying that she felt genuinely disappointed. She commented that if someone was poor, then at the very least they should possess a respectable personality. Hearing that, Jung-soo teasingly asked whether she was trying to imply that wealthy people did not have good personalities. Yura immediately clarified that she had not meant it that way at all. She explained that simply looking at Young-soo was enough to understand the difference. She remarked that despite the many sins and rumors people associated with him, he had always been generous with his wealth. She believed that everyone continued following him not merely because of his money, but because he also possessed a genuinely good personality that naturally attracted people to him. Young-soo admitted that he had organized a party only once in the past, but so many frustrating problems had arisen during that event that he had decided never to host another party again. Curious about the past, Yura told him that she wanted to know everything that had happened during that previous gathering. Young-soo began explaining that the old groundskeeper had constantly been peeking at the girls and was eventually caught doing so. The entire situation had turned into a complete mess, which was why he had instructed Jekyll to hire someone else to replace the old groundskeeper. However, even after replacing him, one unfortunate incident continued to follow another, making everything even more chaotic than before. Yura commented that there must have been a reason why Jung-soo had remained so cautious and kept his guard up around that man. Young-soo explained that he had originally wanted to gym more with Yura himself, but because she had seemed extremely upset the previous day, he had instead sent Pilhwan to accompany her. Yura then revealed that Pilhwan had asked her to keep something secret from everyone. She explained that Pilhwan had admitted he was unable to conduct the gym training himself and had requested that she not reveal it to anyone. Young-soo nodded in understanding and explained that he had done everything for a reason because he simply wanted to protect Pilhwan's pride from being damaged or humiliated. After listening to his explanation, Yura became curious about the previous year's party and asked whether he had been the only man staying together with all of the other girls at that time. Young-soo confirmed that he had indeed been the only one. He recalled that those girls had all been wonderful in their own ways, and mentioned that one of them had been especially innocent and beautiful, reminding him very much of Yura herself. However, despite remembering her so clearly, he admitted that he had never told anyone exactly how long ago that party had taken place. Yina tried her best to understand everything that had happened around her. The entire situation had become so overwhelming and chaotic that she suddenly realized she had not even eaten dinner. All of the confusion, tension, and unexpected incidents had completely driven the thought of food out of her mind, and only now did she notice how hungry she actually was after everything that had taken place. Meanwhile, Yura continued massaging Jung-soo while he casually remarked that they should have already moved on from the massage. Yura calmly replied that if he recovered his full strength, she would be able to have more gym sessions with him. As she continued the massage, her eyes carefully observed his body, and she once again confirmed that there was still no identifying mark on him either. That discovery only deepened the curiosity that had been growing inside her. She could not stop wondering what had truly happened to her sister a year ago, and every answer she found only seemed to raise even more questions. It felt as though she was getting closer to the truth, yet it still remained just beyond her reach. Jung-soo once again brought up the beautiful girl from a year earlier. He explained that after the party, he had met her several more times, and that they had continued seeing each other. Listening to him, Yura remarked that if he had liked that girl so much, then he should have stayed in contact with her instead of letting her disappear from his life. Young-soo then revealed that the girl was dead now, claiming that she had taken her own life. He added that he still did not know the reason behind her suicide and insisted that even now it remained a mystery to him. Refusing to accept his words so easily, Yura questioned him directly, asking whether he had ever mistreated her or abused her in any way. Young-soo immediately denied the accusation and insisted that he had always treated the girl well. He claimed that he had pampered her, had even paid off all of her student debt, and had supported her whenever she needed help. According to him, every time they met, she would cling to him affectionately and repeatedly tell him that she loved him. Because of all of that, he claimed that he had been genuinely shocked when he learned that she had ended her own life, insisting that nothing about her behavior had suggested such an outcome. After hearing everything he said, Yura could no longer hide her disgust. She sarcastically remarked that it was impossible for human trash like him to speak such gentle and caring words to any woman, making it obvious that she did not believe a single thing that came out of his mouth. Her words immediately caught Young-soo's attention, and he looked at her before asking whether she was really calling him a bad man. Rather than continuing the argument, Yura simply replied that she was tired and wanted the conversation to end. However, Young-soo refused to let her leave. He stopped her and coldly remarked that she could not go anywhere because she looked somewhat similar to the girl from the previous year. The moment those words left his mouth, Yura completely lost her composure. Overcome by anger, she repeatedly slapped Young-soo across the face without holding herself back. Young-soo, unable to understand the true reason behind her sudden outburst, questioned why she was so angry and warned her that she should stop before things went too far. Even while striking him, Yura found herself thinking that she was acting strangely by becoming so furious over something like this, yet she simply could not control the emotions that had been building inside her. Before she could react any further, Jung-soo suddenly grabbed her with force, overpowered her, and pinned her down onto the floor. Looking down at her with complete contempt, he declared that she was no different from any of the other women. Elsewhere, in another room, Chi-seong remained tightly bound like an animal, unable to free himself no matter how much he struggled. As he sat there restrained, his thoughts drifted toward Pilwan. He admitted to himself that Pilwan was incredibly strong, far stronger than he had expected. Even so, that realization only strengthened his determination, and he silently vowed that he could not wait for the opportunity to take his revenge against him. While he remained trapped, his attention was suddenly drawn toward the large glass window, where he noticed Yena standing outside. She looked at him with concern and asked whether he needed something to eat, assuring him that she would go to the kitchen and bring him some food. Watching her leave, Chi-seong realized that she was the only person he could rely on in that place. He immediately decided that once she returned, he would ask her to untie him and help him escape from his restraints. Yena then headed toward the kitchen to search for something that Chi-seong could eat. As she looked around for food, she suddenly heard an unusual sound coming from nearby. The noise immediately caught her attention, causing her to stop what she was doing. Slowly and cautiously, she walked closer to the door to find out where the sound was coming from. As she approached and looked inside, she was horrified to discover that Young-soo was violently beating Yura. The sight instantly reminded her that he had assaulted another girl in the past as well. Realizing that he was completely mentally unstable and capable of brutally attacking women without hesitation, Yena became frightened. Panic quickly filled her mind, and she immediately thought that she had to call someone to help before the situation became even worse. Yena quickly untied Chi-seong's restraints, and without wasting another second, the two of them rushed together to save Yura from Jung-soo. The moment they entered the room, Chi-seong saw Jung-soo attacking Yura, and his anger immediately exploded. Without giving Jung-soo any chance to react, Chi-seong charged straight at him and began beating him relentlessly. While Chi-seong confronted Jung-soo, Yena immediately hurried over to Yura's side and stayed with her, helping her as she recovered from the assault. The commotion soon attracted everyone else's attention. Pilwan, Jisheol, and the other girls rushed into the room, only to freeze in shock when they witnessed the violent fight unfolding before their eyes. None of them had expected to see such chaos. Looking at Chi-seong in disbelief, Pilwan demanded to know why he was doing all of this. Instead of answering calmly, Chi-seong glared at him and sarcastically asked whether he had come there to protect Jung-soo's honor. Before Pilwan could respond, Chi-seong redirected all of his fury toward him and began beating him as well. The sudden turn of events left everyone present completely stunned. The girls could only stand there in disbelief as they watched Chi-seong overpower both Jung-soo and Pilhwan without showing any sign of stopping. Jisheol immediately stepped forward and desperately tried to calm Chi-seong down, hoping to end the fight before it became even worse. However, Chi-seong angrily told him to keep his mouth shut, declaring that after everything that had happened, Jisheol no longer had the right to call himself his friend. His voice was filled with disappointment as well as rage, making it clear that he felt deeply betrayed. Still consumed by anger, Chi-seong turned his attention back to Jung-soo and demanded that he tell the truth honestly. He insisted that Jung-soo admit whether he had really tried to frame him together with Marie. Faced with Chi-seong's furious interrogation, Jung-soo eventually apologized. However, the apology had no effect whatsoever. Chi-seong refused to forgive him and continued beating him without hesitation, refusing to believe that a simple apology could erase everything that had happened. Watching the situation spiral completely out of control, Bronze urgently told Jisheol that he had to stop the fight before someone was seriously hurt. Jikyeol, however, helplessly admitted that there was nothing he could do. He explained that nobody could stop Chi-seong in his current state because he had completely lost control of his emotions. Just then, Yura slowly approached Chi-seong despite her injuries, gently grabbed his arm, and pleaded with him to calm down and stop fighting. Meanwhile, Jisheol and Bronze stepped outside the room, while the tension inside slowly began to settle. Speaking in a serious tone, Jisheol explained that Chi-seong had once been an undefeated high school thug. He revealed that when Chi-seong was younger, he had participated in numerous sports and possessed exceptional physical ability. However, everything had changed after one particular incident. Jisheol explained that Chi-seong had gotten into a fight with an entire high school gang simply to protect one of his friends. Although his intentions had been good, the consequences had been severe. The school had suspended him because of the incident, and his family had suffered financially after being forced to pay compensation for another student's hospital expenses. That painful experience had completely changed Chi Seong's outlook on life. From that day onward, he had promised himself that he would leave behind his violent past and live a peaceful and quiet life instead. After hearing the entire story, Bronze looked at Jekiel in disbelief and remarked that they had unknowingly brought a monster into the villa. Jekiel, however, admitted that even he was confused by the dangerous situation unfolding before them and had never expected things to escalate this far. At that moment, Marie spoke up and reminded everyone that the people involved were heirs to unimaginable wealth and enormous political influence. She warned that Chi Seong should never have involved himself in a conflict with people like them because doing so would place him in an extremely dangerous position. Hearing those words, Chi Seong suddenly began thinking more rationally. The anger that had consumed him slowly gave way to concern as he realized the seriousness of what he had done. He thought that those people possessed enough wealth and influence to have him imprisoned for the rest of his life if they wanted to. He began regretting that he had allowed his emotions to control him and promised himself that he should have remained calm and that something like this must never happen again. Even so, he also admitted to himself that the moment he had seen Yora injured and being attacked, he had been unable to think about anything else. His body had simply moved on its own. Realizing the trouble he had brought upon himself, Chi Seong silently thought that he might have no choice but to pack his belongings and disappear into the mountains to live away from everyone. Chi Seong packed all of his belongings and quietly left for the mountains. As he walked away from the villa, he kept thinking that he could not continue staying under the same roof as Jung-soo after everything that had happened. He believed that he had gone too far by attacking him and that remaining there would only make the situation worse. Determined to leave everything behind, he continued walking toward the main road, believing that once he crossed it, he would finally be able to put some distance between himself and the villa. However, as he reached the point where he intended to cross, he was stunned to discover that the road was completely blocked. The landslide had destroyed the route, leaving no safe way for him to get across. Realizing that there was no path forward, he had no choice but to stop. Meanwhile, back inside the villa, Young-soo was furiously shouting at Pil-hwan. He demanded to know when they would finally be able to leave the area. Pil-hwan calmly reminded him that he had already explained it would take several days before they could get out. Young-soo, however, angrily declared that he wanted to leave immediately because he intended to get his revenge on Chi Seong. Unable to tolerate Young-soo's behavior any longer, Pil-hwan suddenly grabbed him by the neck and angrily told him that the entire disaster was happening because of him. He warned that once the chairman discovered the mess he had created yet again, the consequences would be unimaginable. Pil-hwan reminded him that this incident had taken place inside the mansion with several women present, making the situation even more serious. He firmly ordered Jung-soo to stop talking and remain silent from that moment onward if he did not want to make matters even worse. Before either of them could continue arguing, the door suddenly opened and Jekiel hurried inside. He informed them that they had another serious problem. Everyone immediately followed him outside, where all of the girls had already gathered together. They explained that there was nothing left to eat inside the villa. Looking around, Jekiel commented that it appeared as though someone had completely emptied the entire place of food. Pil-hwan immediately asked where Chi Seong was. Jekiel replied that he was not sure because Chi Seong had already disappeared by the time he woke up that morning. Pil-hwan immediately assumed that Chi Seong had run away after stealing all of the food. However, Yena immediately rejected that possibility. She explained that the refrigerator had already been completely empty while Chi Seong was still tied up, and she had personally seen it herself. She admitted that she had not mentioned it earlier because she had been too confused and surprised by what she had discovered. Just then, Young-soo joined the conversation and insisted that Chi Seong had to be responsible because nobody else could have done something like that. He even claimed that Chi Seong was mentally unstable, making him the obvious suspect. At that exact moment, Chi Seong returned and overheard everything. Looking directly at Young-soo, he angrily pointed out that first Young-soo had tried to frame him as a criminal, and now he was calling him mentally unstable as well. Without wasting any more time arguing, Chi Seong explained the real reason he had left the villa. He said that he had only gone outside to check how much of the road had been cleared. However, after inspecting the area himself, he had discovered that there was no road left to clear at all. The landslide had opened an enormous chasm that was far too wide for any vehicle to cross, let alone a person. His words immediately made everyone realize the true severity of their situation. Hearing that explanation, Jekiel sighed and remarked that it seemed as though they were trapped there forever. Trying to think of another solution, Marie suggested that Young-soo could simply arrange for a helicopter to come and rescue them. Pil-hwan, however, quickly explained that calling a helicopter was not that simple because they would first need official clearance. Once that process began, the chairman would inevitably learn about everything that had happened at the villa. Jung-soo also admitted that arranging a helicopter involved extensive paperwork and multiple levels of authorization, making it impossible to organize immediately. The other girls, who had been quietly listening to the discussion, became increasingly anxious and pleaded that they wanted to leave the villa as soon as possible and return home. Jung-soo declared that he would find another solution somehow and turned to leave. Before he could take another step, Chi-seong stopped him and demanded that he return everyone's mobile phones. Chi-seong bluntly stated that nobody cared about protecting Jung-soo's public image anymore because their safety was now far more important. Jung-soo immediately walked over to the drawer where the phones had been kept and pulled it open. To his complete surprise, the drawer was empty. He repeatedly insisted that he was not lying because the phones had genuinely disappeared. He then turned toward Pilwon, assuming that Pilwon still had his own phone and could contact someone for help. However, Pilwon revealed that his own phone had also gone missing that very morning. That revelation instantly filled everyone with even greater anxiety, as it meant that none of them had any way to contact the outside world. Trying to make sense of everything, Jung-soo remarked that the only person who had arrived at the villa with a personal objective and who was now missing during all of this chaos was Yura. At that very moment, Yura was quietly taking a bath by herself. As she stood alone, she silently vowed that she would never forgive Jung-soo for everything he had done to her. When Chi-seong heard Jung-soo trying to shift the blame onto Yura, he immediately grabbed him by the collar and angrily questioned whether he was seriously suspecting the very girl whom he had brutally beaten. Before another fight could break out, Pilhwan stepped between them and urged everyone to stop accusing each other. He insisted that instead of wasting time arguing, they should search the villa thoroughly because the missing phones might still be somewhere inside the house. The following morning, all of the girls sat together, their expressions filled with worry as they continued thinking about the missing phones and their inability to contact anyone outside the villa. The atmosphere remained heavy with anxiety. During that time, Chi-seong quietly approached Jakiel and asked him to come with him for a while, indicating that he wanted to speak with him in private.